That's the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
What?
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor.
What difference at this point does it make?
Doesn't make sense.
If you're looking to make sense out of what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-a-dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on Internet radio. And you can join the show and let your voice be heard by dialing 917-889-3675. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
When an emergency strikes, what's your first impulse? If your answer is run to the grocery store, you're likely to find chaos and plenty of empty shelves. So how do you avoid this? Well, it's simple. You use today to make a plan, to prepare for things that may happen. It's a hurricane, earthquake, blizzard, or even social unrest, especially in today's political environment. The practical place to start is by storing up food in your home. And I use My Patriot Supply for my food storage. If you don't have an emergency food supply, it's time to do so. Here's a great item that makes it really simple. A 2-week food kit that comes in a rugged tote. And it's only $75 when you go to my special website, preparewithsouthernsense.com, or call 888-441-7290. This food kit includes breakfast, lunch, and dinners that will last up to 25 years on your storage shelves. So order now and prepare yourself, and then rest easy. So it's very simple. Just call 888-441-7290 or go to preparewithsouthernsense.com. You know what? Let's make it even more simple than that. You're listening to my show, and it's called Southern Sense, and you know you put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com, and click on the icon for My Patriot Food.
All right. Oh, forgot my microphone. I'm starting to show off well. Oh, welcome to another adventure here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube. Forget about it. Just go to the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, no longer known as the Radio Chick, but as the Radio Chick-a-dee. Oh, Annie, the Radio Chick-a-dee. Along with my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, you have no idea what is going on my end. I'm telling you, anything and everything that can possibly just go wrong just went wrong on my computer. I'm like, what the? I'm lost. I am absolutely lost, Curtis. Bail me out. I think Curtis can't get on. Oh, Curtis. Curtis can't get on. Curtis, can you hear me now? Curtis, are you with me? I don't even have my co-host. Can anyone hear me? Oh, my goodness. Curtis, are you with us? I am lost with the co-host. Hopefully, Curtis can try to call back in because I have no sound. I heard the music playing over, so... I see Chief and Duck are in the chat room. If you can hear me, please just say yes that you can, because that means that Curtis needs to call back in. Because I have no sound from Curtis. Anyway, I hope you guys can hear me. Anyway, is great at social distancing. I have no life. Curtis, Chief, can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, looks like maybe they cannot hear me. Maybe it looks like I may have to call in and out. I hear nothing. I see nothing. I only hear Annie. Okay, Duck, you hear me, and Chief hears me. Okay, which means Curtis cannot hear me. So, Curtis, I'm going to boot you out and force you to call back in. Anyway... Welcome to Southern Sense. Oh, geez, I told you. It must be Friday the 13th all over again, repeating itself. Boing. Anyway, we've got ourselves, if we can make the rest of the show work out fine, a great lineup. My friend Glenn McCall from the South Carolina GOP, he is also the national spokesperson, one of them, the national spokespersons for the RNC. He'll be calling in at around 3:30. And join us for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to have our friend Gregory Wrightstone. Oh, I love this man. I could just eat him up. I mean, just to meet him in person, he is just as genuine as when you hear him speak on the air or if you see him over on Fox. Recently, he was on Steve Hilton on Fox Nation, and I watched it, and what a pleasure. I mean, I love him so much. He'll be joining us. We also have a new person, Phil Kerpen. He is with a group called American Commitment, and he also has one for senior citizens, American Commitment for Seniors. He's going to be joining us, and he's going to be hitting on a subject that is near and dear to my soul. Oh, man, dissing AARP, as if the mass media, the mainstream media just loves AARP. And oh my goodness, I have been on a one-woman crusade against AARP before I turned 50. And once I turned 50, the gloves were off. Anyway, he'll be joining us to discuss the ins and outs of AARP. And then we've got a new friend. He's a former CIA operative, and he's written 2 books. The first book of Why and the second book of Why. I had mentioned it at our last show, and the first book of Why is called Why I Am Me. And you think it's one of these touchy-feely books, one of these psychological, oh, this is why, you can't, your life is such a disaster because you haven't been able to cope, and this is how you... That's not what the book is about, people. The guy is a former CIA operative, and when I started reading the book, I go, it's not what I expected. It's an amazing book. I've just read both of the books. We're going to be talking to him about that. We're going to be discussing the coronavirus. We're going to be discussing everything that possibly is going on under the sun. Another thing, if you noticed, I did not introduce myself as the radio chick. Annie has gotten herself onto another warpath. What? Annie on a warpath? No. I had been contacted through the my page, and this one person happens to be a broadcaster out of New York, someone I had never heard of before, and her title happens to be the Radio Chick. And she threatened me over trademark infringements. Well, those of you that know me, that doesn't go over too well. So I have to go in back and forth, and she sent me the documents. She also claimed I did an illegal action. Wow. You're going to tell this cop what is criminal and what is not?
I'm sorry. You violate a trademark, filing. That's not a criminal action unless there's intent to gain personal wealth and to, defame or slander the individual that actually holds that trademark. None of that was done. Matter of fact, not a single penny of personal gain has ever been made off of this radio show in over 10 years. So no criminal action, maybe civil liability, not even, because there was no intent of harm. No knowledge of this trademark having been filed by this woman how many years ago? But consequently, I've had to give up the moniker of the Radio Chick. So, Annie turns around after several emails go back and forth and says, you don't mind if I happen to use the Radio Chick-a-dee unless you've actually patented that too. My snidness, my snarkiness. Let's hope Curtis is with us now. Curtis, can you hear us?
Yes.
Finally! Hooray! Curtis is in the house! Yay!
I tell you, I don't know what's worse, BTR or this virus. It keeps killing us every Friday.
Oh, man. I'm trying to see if we got ourselves up on Facebook, and it looks like we are not. We're not up on the live videos. Oh, yeah, we are actually up on Facebook's SHR Media. So, yes, we are up over there. So, if you are watching on SHR Media, we are finally up over there. Okay, so, guys, we're up there. But I'm looking on my own page, and I don't... Oh, yes, we are finally up on Southern Sense. Holy cow, I'm telling you, this show today has been the nightmare.
It's
anyway,
weird.
Yeah, it has started off weird. And Curtis says he's back as he's up on the chat room. I want to welcome everyone.
Yeah.
That has joined us over up on Facebook. And I'll try to get here we go. Try to get the watch parties going on both of them. And we'll start them up on SHR Media as well as Southern Sense. Start the watch parties on both there. Anyway.
Yeah. I wish I could have stayed longer Monday. I think it was Monday when we were on the radio, right?
Right. We did a
How
special...
did it go after I left?
Well, we did a special broadcast, and Yanni did join us. So if anyone actually does believe, I guess I am married to a man named Yanni, Jani, pronounced Yani. And Curtis has met my husband, yeah. And matter of fact, Curtis's wife, Carolyn, and my husband, Yanni, have fallen asleep together on the couch. True story. We'll leave it there at that, right, Curtis? And Carolyn's probably behind you, hitting you over the head, going, she did not just say that over the air. Yes, I did, Carolyn, because we can laugh about it. Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I forgot what I was saying.
We're talking about the broadcast Monday.
Oh, yeah, Monday we did a special broadcast because of my Beaufort Tea Party. They don't want meetings of people over 50 people here in South Carolina, but they were encouraging anyone over 10 people to not congregate. Right now, here in South Carolina, the governor has issued an order calling for all indoor and outdoor dining to be closed as of yesterday. They're closing down hotels. Now, where I am in South Carolina is a very, very heavy tourist area. And what this will do to our economy, even if they're closed for a week, 2 weeks, it would be a disaster. We are heavily into the hotel and tourist, and we're at the start of the tourist season. I mean, this is where everything ramps up. We have restaurants that just opened in the last month, and how they're going to survive being closed in their first 2 weeks of opening, I have no idea. I don't know what the stimulus package would do, but it's a drop in the bucket. But I also don't agree with the stimulus package. The answer is not for government to bail us out. The answer is for government to find a solution
to this virus and a solution to the panic that people have. If you have gone into the grocery stores lately, shelf upon shelf upon shelf is empty from people from hoarding. That's not smart, folks. You should have been prepared to begin with. You know, Curtis, you know, Yanni and I are always hurricane prepared. And you live in an area that you get a lot of hurricanes. So you know that you always have extra toilet paper, extra paper towels. If you're going to buy a bag of rice, buy 2. Leave one on the shelf. And you get down to that second one, buy another one. And you always keep something stockpiled. Pasta, canned goods, dry goods. You always keep stuff. I mean, if I need to make pasta, I can make pasta every day of the week for the next month and probably still not run out. So I'm half Italian. I got it. You know,
all I need to get is a generator.
Ah.
I know you have a generator.
I
have
2.
to get one.
I've got 2. 1 propane, 1 gasoline. So if the gasoline stations cannot pump gasoline, I have a propane tank that uses less per gallon, or per pound, if you want to call it that, than I would in gasoline, and would run longer on less. So I have both. And if I need, I've got a grill. I've got a charcoal grill. I've got my fireplace. So I can cook in my fireplace. I've got a grill that goes into my fireplace. I am prepared. We've got candles if we lose light. So, you know, you think of these things ahead of time. In the garage, I've got a case and a half of water. We started digging into the other case because Yanni goes, nothing's going to happen. Let's use up one of these cases and we'll buy another one later. So, we actually even have a hot tub on the porch. And Curtis, you took a quick look out back and, you know, saw the disaster on the porch. But we cleaned off a corner of it. We've got a 4-person hot tub.
Okay.
So that even if we were not to have water and I need to flush the toilet, I can dig into the hot tub, pull out several buckets of water, and flush my toilets. If I need water for cleaning, I can boil the water and use it for cleaning. I won't use it for cooking. I'll use the bottled water. But you have to be prepared. And if you're on medication, always make sure you have no less than 3 weeks' supply of medication on you. If you have to talk to your doctor and say, hey, do you have free samples? You know, ask the doctor for free samples so you can stockpile. I make sure I have extra of my heart medicine because that's my major concern. And I've got always a month and a half of extra heart medication because I ask them for the free sample. You think smart. But instead, everyone thinks of us as a disposable society, and everything has to be, oh, I can run to the store last second and get whatever I want, whether that's Grey Poupon mayonnaise. Well, sorry, folks. I don't think you're going to say Grey Poupon or any mustard on the shelf for the next 2 months because people have hoarded and stockpiled. Anyway, that is my rant for now. We're starting to run out of time here, Curtis, as I do my rant, because I know Glenn is going to call in the next few minutes. And maybe what I may do is, since he will be calling in about 10 minutes, I will postpone the dedication until after he calls, because we'll have another 15 minutes to fill before our next guest. So that's what I'll do. So I'm just going to put this aside for now, and then we'll do the dedication after we talk to Glenn McCall.
After.
Yeah. So I'll just put this aside. So I don't forget.
You know,
remind me,
I wonder if kids today know what a candle is.
You know, that's a curious thing because we had a blackout because of a storm that came through here a couple of years back. And Yanni and I pulled out the generator, cranked it up, got the TV going, plugged in the refrigerators, because I've got 2 refrigerators and a deep freeze, made sure all 3 were plugged in, and then we plugged in the TV. And, you know, you hook it up to, we've got satellite dish, so you hook it up the dish and everything's all in the one plug. And we were able to have TV. And, you know, our TV going, the generator going, the refrigerator's going, we got some lights plugged in. And I look outside and the neighborhood's black. None of my neighbors within a 6-house radius had any lights. Not a single candle, not a single light. I went into my spare drawer, filled my back pockets with candles, and started knocking on doors. And I says, listen, I don't see any lights. Do you have any candles? And they said, no. So I pull out 2 candles. And he says, I'm across the street. If the lights don't come on, back on by the time these candles burn out, come across the street. I've got some more. I'll give you some more. And I was knocking on doors, handing people candles. And I says, listen, if this lasts a long time, we've got the ability to cook. And if you have no food or anything like that, we'll be happy to share. When Hurricane Matthew came through, a neighbor across the street from mine, he was prepared. He had his generators going. He had food. He was barbecuing. We were doing the same thing. And we had friends down the street living without any light, any electricity, no food. And she had her granddaughter, a 7-year-old granddaughter, living with her. And I says, bring her down. We've got plenty of food. I went out and made barbecue chicken and baked beans and stuff. We were prepared. And we were able to share our bounty. I mean, if I needed to, I could have made bread. So, but we had everything. We had enough supplies. We were ready. And that's the whole point, folks. I think this is the biggest learning moment for our nation, is teaching us preparedness, something that our great-grandparents knew how to do. My grandparents knew how to do. I mean, my grandmother had a victory garden during World War II. And the funny thing is, I had not done gardening in the last couple of years because of my arthritis, my bad back. And I've been going through new physical therapy, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I still have a hard time lifting, bending over, and doing a lot of things, but I'm feeling better. So I've started up my own seeds. So I've got tomato, green pepper. I've got all different types of spices like parsley, dill, basil, Lord knows whatever else I've got. I've got all this stuff already starting. Sunflowers. I got sunflowers starting. Some wildflowers starting. But I have it. So Lord forbid, I can't get tomatoes, and I'm going to be growing my own. If I can't get green peppers, I'm Italian. I need tomatoes and green peppers and onions.
Yeah, how hard can it be? I mean, Bloomberg said all you got to do is put a seed in the ground and throw some water on it. Got instant garden. A couple of days later.
Blooming idiot Bloomberg. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. Anyway.
Okay.
But, simple preparedness, simple common sense. But, Curtis, one thing that really, really made me super glad, walking through the living room, and Trump was talking, and Mike Pence was there, and Pompeo, and a couple of other people. And they were talking about the things
room.
Yeah, he was talking about the things that he has already put in place, things that he has initiated, and things that he has set for the future. And then he started to talk about different manufacturers, especially in the audio industry, that are re-gearing their assembly lines to accommodate the needs, whether it is for the masks to protect yourself, whether or not it's for the sanitizing lotions, or for gloves, or for the ventilators. Our American industry and the independent capitalist out there, the independent free market thinker out there, is thinking outside the box. This is something that Europe and the communist and socialist world has the inability to do, is think outside the box like an American can. What makes us so uniquely American is because we have independent thought, independent action, and the free market economy to look for where there is a niche and a need, and to fulfill that need and meet the needs of the American people in any circumstance, in any emergency. God bless America, and God bless for the men and women out there looking for these niches and these needs. There's a man out there by the name of Khan that started an online school for kids from, preschool, kindergarten, all the way up through high school. And people finally found him online and said, well, we're locked at home. We're in self-quarantine. My kids are pulled out of school because school is closed. Here in South Carolina, the schools are closed. How many thousands of kids are wandering around out there, causing trouble and havoc, where the parents are saying, nope, you're stuck in the house with us. You're going to continue your schooling. We're going to work with you. We're going to get through this. And kids are being self-taught at home by their parents. what a wonderful, wonderful thing it is out there. And only in
Do you know
America.
that during World War II, the military took over Walt Disney Studios, and they made a lot of movies, little shorts, war effort movies, to raise funds and stuff for the war effort. So, we go back a ways when it comes to our industry, coming to the rescue of America, even World War I.
World War I, World War II, and guess who was someone that was very instrumental in Hollywood and Walt Disney in producing a lot of those military films? Ronald Reagan, our future president of the United States. Ha-ha. How many people knew that Ronald Reagan was the one that was involved in a lot of that? And like I said,
Oh, yeah.
households across the nation during World War II had their victory gardens, whether or not it was on a windowsill outside of your city apartment, or like my grandmother in the lot next to her house. And a lot of people had lots. If they lived in an urban area, shared the lot and created that victory garden. A lot of people in suburban areas had it in their backyards. A lot of people in the rural areas had it in their empty plots. Our nation pulls together any and every time there is a crisis. And what really gets me is that we have this contained, essentially. And they turn around and said that we've got, now I think it's now something like 14,000 people have contracted the virus. So I did a little basic math. And do you know what that comes up to? The percentage of Americans that now are infected. All right, I estimate, and they say
0.00 something.
Well, I estimate there's approximately 350 million people in the United States, give or take, and it's a higher number if you consider all illegal aliens. So they say 323, so you just round that up to 350. That comes up to not 0.4, not 0.04, not 0.004, not 0.0004. It comes up to 0.00004% of the Americans that have been infected with this virus. That is approximately the same number that died from SARS. Not infected, but the ones that died from SARS under the Obama administration. Was there a nationwide panic? Was there a worldwide panic on that one? No. But mainstream media, or should I say lamestream media, has decided to ramp it up. The Obama haters decided to ramp it up. And if you remember, 2.5 months ago, I said George Soros made a public statement that coming into the elections, there's going to be a major economic disaster. My question is what did George Soros know? How much of his corporate influences are in China? How did he know that this was going to break out when it broke out? George Soros has a lot to answer for. I think our guest is listening in on the line, and he's probably going, oh, crap. What did Gabriella get me into? So let's bring the caller in on the line. And I do believe this is my friend Glenn McCall. Good afternoon, Glenn.
Hello. How you doing, Annie?
I am doing fine. I am so sorry. I missed you at the Trump rally. When Gabriella helped me get the tickets, she got me the ones in the press area because my intention was to broadcast to have you come down, have Chris come down and talk to me, over in the press area, but they wouldn't let me out. They had me penned in. And you know what? I think it's because I wore a T-shirt. My husband and I made these T-shirts, and it said, Buford Tea Party for Trump. It said Buford Tea Party SC for Trump with the South Carolina flag on it. Do you know the nasty, dirty scare I got from the media area? And we're sitting there with our mega hats sitting in front of our equipment, unable to broadcast because I couldn't get a signal out. And I'm going, damn. And that's why I kept on texting you and trying to call you. And it says I couldn't even get the text out because it was blocking my signal.
Right. Well, I tell you, it was a great event. It was a great event, well attended, and the president did a good job as always.
Oh, he did. It was so much fun, and he did one more rally before we had this corona or COVID virus or Wuhan virus, as I call it. One more rally, and I can't wait for this to pass, to him to ramp back up those rallies again. But why isn't anyone asking the question? What did George Soros know, and how early did he know it? Because he does have major interests and connections into the communist government in China. Wuhan province is where they had the biological factory there, and it was the epicenter of the breakout right around the factory. What did he know, and could he be held culpable for this outbreak and for any deaths that occur? It's a question I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's a good one, I think.
Right. Well, I think it's definitely worth asking, but I feel the president is no matter how it happened, how we got here, and I would agree with you. I was listening where the H1N1 virus back in 2009 under President Obama, most people didn't even know about it, and it killed. If I'm not mistaken, it was over 10,000.
I think it was over 12.
I think over 200,000 affected.
I think it was over 12,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well. No one even knew about it. Very few people knew. We definitely didn't. Quarantine. Have this with the distancing and the things that's happening today. But irregardless of that, I feel the president is doing a great job showing his leadership and compassion for our country. And I don't know if you saw it today. I think it's 55% of Americans feel he's doing a great job in handling this. And what was meant for evil will turn out for good. And he is doing a good job, he and his team and the vice president. And we're looking forward to, and we're going to get past this, and we're going to win this election because the American people understand that the president cares about this country. He created jobs. We things will slide back, but I'm convinced that before the election, things will pick back up.
Well, you missed the rant I had just before that, because what it makes America so great, so wonderful, so unique than any other part of the world is because we have the ability to do something that Europe can't do, the communist countries can't do, the socialist countries cannot do.
Right.
We can innovate. We can think outside the box like no other nation. When President Trump put out the call for people to help him with hand sanitizers, with masks, with ventilators, with all these other things we need, we're finding people coming out of industries you would never think possible of being able to give us a hand. I mean, the auto industry saying, well, we can help you with the masks. We have another industry saying, well, if you can change the listing on these masks and have them approved, because they're the same exact masks, it's just the insurance. And Trump is saying, we're working on it, we're going to get it done. Our nation is the only nation that can do this. And I'm so proud to be an American at this time in history.
Yeah, and we're coming together. But it shows what difference it makes to have a businessman in the White House, someone who's created jobs, who had to work through challenges and build buildings and get projects approved versus a career politician in the White House like Joe Biden would be. And Obama when he was there. And I think, like I said, I'm confident we'll move past this. And I love it the way he is working with the public-private partnerships to make things happen. And to not only move public-private, but he is also asking government agencies to be creative and innovative and approving medication and research and so forth. So I think it's showing the great skills that he has to bring people together.
I had a laugh, because our Governor McMaster's put out the executive order closing down restaurants, indoor and outdoor dining. And
Right.
And my husband and I made a short run to the hardware store yesterday, and I look over at a local restaurant, and he had put a tent in front of the opening of his business, and he had people sitting in cars waiting for their pickup. And he says, well, if you're not going to be able to come into the restaurant, I'm open. We're going to set out an outdoor where you can pay for it or pick up your meal, and you can feel safe and not worry about, getting sick. And I started looking around at other businesses here in South Carolina, and I says, God bless America. Because only in America, because we see what's going on in Italy, and we see death after death, because they're not prepared. They have no idea how to think outside the box like an American can. And here's a funny thought. Talk about inability to think outside the box, bringing this to our presidential election. I had to really, really laugh because the Trump-Pence team released a little bit of a press thing. And anytime Trump says, well, I'm going to do something such as looking for a public option plan to help hospitals reduce their high risk, next thing we know, Joe Biden is parroting the same exact words. And then there was the call for about, hospital employees and something else he called out. And every time Trump opens his mouth about what he's going to do about, calling out to industry to work with government, Biden all of a sudden says the very same thing. So this presidential race, even though we've got this virus going on, still has its comical moments coming from the Democrats. You can't make this up, Glenn.
Right.
You can't.
Oh, well, no. And what he's done is connected himself, and he is connected with the Obama administration, who really did nothing, ran this country in the ground. They were not creative and thought leaders on how to grow the economy. And he's going to be tied. I'm personally happy he's going to be their nominee because he's going to be tied to the failed presidency of Obama, 8 years. And not only that, his 30-plus years in federal government. And I mean, we don't need someone like that. The president's doing a great job in leading us through this crisis. And most people I talk with are confident that we're going to come out of this and we're going to be even stronger as we move forward.
I was watching the presser earlier today, and I was watching that one person. I forget what station he was with, and Trump just really put the guy in his place. And you're listening to the mainstream media, and it's like, well, how dare you talk to him? Do you think you had the right tone? And I love this man, Trump. God bless him. He goes, yes. Because as soon as she asked the question, I'm screaming. My husband's looking at me, I'm going, say yes, say yes, say yes. And of course, Trump looks at her and goes, of course I do. You gotta love the man because he's not taking it. He's not taking it. I don't care who you are in the press. He's going to say, I want you to call the truth. And he is. He's forcing them to be responsible for their actions, and they don't like that, do they?
No, and not only that, what he has been saying before he even won the presidency, that we need to decouple ourselves. We are too tied in with China, and this crisis is showing that, where we have too many of our critical medical components and supplies being made there that we need to bring back. And so they won't talk about any of that. It's the only thing that's on their mind, has he been tested? Is he okay? And when was the test done? And are we going to test all Americans? How many times does he have to say, if I'm feeling well, why would I get a test? I don't need the test if I'm not showing any symptoms. And I would agree. They cannot, most of them, give him credit for anything. But the American people outside of the Beltway understand what's going on. And this latest poll on his performance in handling this crisis is only going to increase as we move forward.
you mentioned something.
Actually,
Oh, I'm sorry. You mentioned something, Glenn, that was really important about how many of our pharmaceuticals come out of China. And I had General Spaulding on a couple of months back, and this was our very subject, because I'm on quite a few medications, and some of them, if I miss them, I'll end up in the emergency room. I'll end up going into, a cardiac arrest or whatever. And how many Americans are just like me? That we don't know what's in these medications. I mean, I went into full anaphylactic shock on Friday the 13th in September because I took an antibiotic, and obviously this must have come out of China. Something was in there that I went into full shock.
Right.
And one of the things Trump has done is saying, I'm calling for Made in America once again. And I'm glad to see that even Tom Cotton has put up legislation following, Trump's lead, saying, let's get Made in America back, especially with our pharmaceuticals, especially with our aging population.
That's right. That's right. I totally agree. I did not realize that 80-90% of our generic drugs are mixed, if you will, in China. And we just can't have that. We need to, I would agree, let's Made in America. And I mean, we still can do business. They can make clothes and shoes, but I think these critical items we need to bring back on shore here in America. So I'm glad to hear Senator Cotton have filed the bill to this effect.
Yeah, go ahead, Curtis.
What I was going to say was that of most of my friends that are panicking and are in fear are Democrats. And and I can see this because all they get is bad news when they watch MSNBC and CNN. I mean, even my faith-based Democratic friends are fearful, and that's because the Democrats operate on an emotional level, and Republicans more cerebral. So we think things through, where they react with emotion, and this is right up their alley. Fear.
That's right. It's fear, and they know how to pull at the heartstrings of people of color. And we're Republicans. We're the boogeyman, and I even had one person to tell me, well, Trump want to put us back in slavery. Where did you hear that foolishness? It's foolish. And so you need to look at and read different opinions, different news outlets, and be fact based. And so I think you're definitely right that it's all about emotion, and that goes back to our church services. They're all about emotion. It's not about a relationship and truly understanding both sides and being fact based about our information. Most of my family members, they had no idea about H1N1 virus. And when Obama was in 2009, I said, no, why didn't we do these things back then? And it's because they didn't want to do, the media didn't want to advertise it and have it leading on news shows, because it would have tainted his presidency, because he did nothing really as it relates to protect the American people, like President Trump is doing today. So, but I still believe. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say, you mentioned, no one knew about the H1N1, but there was a doctor, and someone had put this up on Facebook, had put this handwritten note on his desk, on his door for his clients, and he said every election year has a disease. He starts off with SARS in 2004, the avian flu 2008, the swine flu 2010, MERS 2012, Ebola 2014, the Zika 2016, Ebola again under Obama 2018, and now we come up with the corona or COVID or WUHAN virus, as I call it, now. We've had it every election year, but why is this one worse? Because it's under Trump.
That's right. That's right. That's the only reason. We all empathize for those that have been affected by it, especially those that have lost their lives. But it's, to me, I'm not fearful. I'm safe. I always wash my hands. I'm just a little more cognizant of it now, but I know we're going to come past this, and our Lord and Savior hadn't given us the spirit of fear. So, because fear controls people, and that's what the Democrats about, control. And but I still believe the president is going to do well with people of color because they know what he's done prior to this. And I believe by the time November election get here, we will be back picking up some of these gains that we've lost.
Well, Glenn, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. I don't think that you know he is the author of over 24, 25 books now, Curtis. What are you up to?
26.
26.
Oh, congratulations.
One of them being a biography. One of them being a biography of Frederick Douglass, and one of his more recent books, I believe, is it C.L. Bennett, I think, is helping you try to make it into a movie. One of your more recent ones. Is it C.L. Bennett or is it? Oh, good Lord, brain fart, Curtis. Help me.
It's
brain fart.
It's a Hankerson group. Derek Hankerson. I don't think we ever had him on the radio show, but
no,
he's got a film corporation, independent.
Okay.
So he would be a perfect one
great.
To help you with the Black outreach, and you and Leon Wynn, and I love Leon. I always want to give him a hug. He and his wife, they're so adorable.
Yeah.
But to help you with
they are.
Minority outreach, because Curtis goes all over the place and speaks and does little things. You recently did something with former Lieutenant Governor Jennifer Carroll down in Florida.
Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer Carroll. See, I'm having
Jennifer
major brain farts. Yeah. It's the gray hair. It's the gray hair. I'll blame it on the gray hair.
So Curtis, are you from South Carolina? You reside in South Carolina now?
No, I live in Florida, but I'm from Philadelphia.
Okay, in Florida.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
An hour below Jacksonville.
Right. Okay. Good.
I was stationed there for a couple of years when I was in the Navy, and so I ended up staying in Florida.
Okay. Well, that's a great place to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a veteran of Desert Storm. So if you want, I can have the two of you exchange information, because he's also a great public speaker. If you ever want him at one of our large...
Yeah.
Are we still having that convention coming up, the presidential convention? Or has that been called off?
Yeah. No. I'm co-chairing the Committee on Arrangements here in Charlotte for the convention, and we're still working hard to have it. We are confident that we will have our convention the end of August. So I would love to get Curtis information and see what can be done there.
All right, that'd be cool. I see that. I just
somehow just give me your contact information, and I'll send some information to you. Bio and stuff like that.
Now, Curtis, you owe me now.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to the state convention, Curtis, you owe me, Curtis.
I'm going to make you a sweet potato pie.
No, you can't do one better than me. My pecan pie is a sweet potato pie. You can't. No, I'm sorry. But anyway, Glenn, what about the state convention for the nomination? We still having that? Because I think that's
Yeah, now I know they're looking into that one because it's as it's scheduled. What is it? The 2nd of May.
Yeah.
And we need to have our district conventions in the month of April. So hopefully we will hear something soon as it relates to district and state conventions in May and April and May.
great.
for the state. But we're still working hard to put on a great convention in Charlotte the week of August the 24th. So.
Oh, great.
I like to attend that.
Well, hopefully I'll see you in May, and Cheryl and I will wear our red, white, and blue boots because we've got the same pair of boots.
Okay. Well, that would be great. Well, Glenn, and I sure appreciate you giving me an opportunity to chat with you and Curtis. That's super.
I was just going to say thank you so much for joining us. You've actually stayed a little bit longer than Gabrielle said you could, so I really do appreciate that. You are so much fun to talk with, and I'm sorry, I was on a royal rant today, so I went way off topic.
Right, that's okay. Well, hey, we appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing for you and Curtis.
Well, God bless you too, also.
I appreciate
you. And we
guys
appreciate your hard work.
Have a good weekend. Okay.
You too, Glenn. Take care.
All right.
Glenn
All right, bye-bye.
Glenn McCall, he is our national spokesperson, and also he's the spokesperson for the RNC National. What a pleasure always to talk with him. But Curtis, I'm going to have to now push this dedication towards the end of the show because I'm looking at the clock, and within a few moments, Gregory will
our next guest
in.
will be on soon.
It's just, with the start of the show actually screwing up. Oh, man. You never know what's going to happen anyway. And we've got the watch parties going on over on Facebook at SHR Media as well as on Southern Sense. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to post on there. And we will continue to broadcast. We are not up on YouTube for some reason. There was a problem with some sort of an authorization. I don't know what that's about. We'll try to figure that one out a little bit later on. But anyway.
I got a question.
Go ahead. See if I can answer it.
What's going on with the mayor of New York and the governor up there? It seems like one felt like he had the power to have people, stay inside their homes and whatnot. Like, he had absolute power. And Cuomo said, not so fast, I'm the big guy here,
Well,
I thought those guys used to get along, with each other.
There seems to be a little bit of a pissing contest, and it looks like de Blasio, thankfully, will be losing that. Mayor de Blasio seems to have lost his mind because his attitude was that, well, I'm closing down all the nail salons, hair salons, the gyms, the restaurants, and any outdoor gathering, blah, 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 blah. And he shut basically New York City down. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. New York City is shut down. He went insofar as castigating people that gathered in public in the parks or on the beach. No. If you go out there on your own and there's no one around you, just do it. You're just you. If you want to go jogging, but you're going to be jogging past people and you're going to be breathing on them. I don't know about that.
Right.
Get on your exercise bike in the house. But if you want to go out and gather in a park, and fine, you keep the social distance to avoid any contamination, or if you know for a fact that this other person is not contaminated, do you want to go out in the park and meet them? Fine. If you feel like hugging them, then that is your business, knowing what the risks are. This is called free choice, people. Free choice. You want to shake someone's hand? It's called free choice. If that person, chooses to shake your hand, just be aware that there's possible consequences. And if that's the case, you want to shake someone's hand. Hey, why don't you both take a little hand sanitizer, squirt a little on, and after you shake hands, wipe your hands. Or after you depart from each other, go straight to the bathroom and wash your hands. There's common sense things. We are social creatures. We are human beings. We crave social contact. I'm sorry. Watching me on Facebook and YouTube is not human contact. But I can say hi. I can joke around. But that's not the same as being with someone face to face. Watching their physical...
True. You might as well be in a space shuttle.
Or in a bubble.
Yeah.
We crave human contact. I mean, my husband went to run out to the store this morning, and he walks out of the house without giving me a kiss. And he says, "Wait a minute, buddy." I go down the front steps and says, "Get over here. You better give me a kiss here, honey child. Otherwise, you're not leaving this property here." But that's me. That's my husband. I mean, we know that both of us are safe. We know that neither one of us have been in contact with someone, or at least knowingly have not been in contact with anyone. I haven't had anyone cough or sneeze on me. So I fear I'm fairly safe. And we'll go out to the grocery store and we laugh at people walking around wearing these masks. It's like, every mask you wear, you idiot, you're taking it away from someone who actually needs it, you dildo. But of course you don't say that in person, you're thinking that.
Yeah.
But, there's common sense things, Curtis. You know that. I know that. The listeners here know that.
Yeah.
There's no real reason to panic.
Tell me if I'm
Just
wrong.
being smart. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I guarantee you're not wrong. Go ahead.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I haven't heard a peep from Joe Biden since the Florida primary on Tuesday. You think they're trying to keep him quiet for a reason?
They're limiting his output. Like I said earlier with Glenn, he has been mimicking a lot of what Trump has been saying. When Trump called for industry to work with, the federal government in producing things we need, such as, for example, the surgical masks, gloves, alcohol wipes, a sanitizer, ventilation machines, other medical equipment. They now feel that there may be some hope with this malaria drug that has been around for more than a century, I believe, because it's been around, well, actually less. I think it's 80 years. Between World War I and II is when they came up with the, I'm going to say it wrong, but it's an additive to quinine water. It used to be really heavy in quinine water. The British actually came up with the quinine when they were, what do you want to call it? When India was its colony, and there was a high level of malaria, and they finally determined that, people drinking quinine water were actually better off than people that weren't. But that is not to say to go out and buy massive cases of tonic water and try to drink it. The amount of quinine that is in today's tonic water is so low. It is only enough to give the tonic water a little bit of that bitter tang, but not enough to cure any disease, even if drunk in large quantities. You'll end up drowning yourself in quinine water before you have enough quinine in your system to kill any sort of a bug. So guys, just don't go crazy over what you're listening to and watching in the news. When they say they may believe this cure for malaria may be a good step forward, don't go buying massive cases of quinine water because there's not enough quinine in there to cure a piss ant. That said, talking about piss ants, perfect intro to our next guest, and he's probably dying going, "Oh my God, she just did not do that to me." Welcome back, Gregory Wrightstone, author of Inconvenient Facts. Good afternoon, Gregory. How's that intro?
So I'm a piss ant now. Is that it? Huh? Oh, man. I thought you told me you loved me. Oh. So, yeah, there's a lot of, I think there's a whole lot of hype going on here. About this. I think you saw, I've got a commentary I wrote on the COVID-19 and its relationship to temperature and humidity last week, and I've got another one that really takes a bigger picture of temperature-related mortality. It was supposed to have been published yesterday. I'm still waiting, but I guess all these places, everybody's backed up due to this COVID-19 stuff. But yeah, it's been fascinating. The more I learn about it, the better I feel, actually. If you want to get into that right now.
Yeah, it's a massive panic. And as they said, under the SARS virus, under the Ebola breakout, we had far more deaths in a shorter period of time than what we are seeing in the Wuhan virus. I'm going to call it for exactly what it is. The Wuhan virus, not the Chinese virus.
Racist. Yeah. Racist. Yeah, you're right about that. It's early. It's fairly early here in the United States, but the most likely scenario is that this coronavirus will behave like all of its cousins and close relations, in that it's actually not very hardy. It doesn't survive well out of a fairly narrow temperature and humidity range. And what's odd, it's kind of counterintuitive. You would think that more humidity would mean it would survive better, but it doesn't. High humidity is one of the things that wipe it out. So you're living in where you are, pretty warm and humid area, which might bode well for your area. And the first study I saw on this related the first major outbreaks in China, Italy, Spain. It was in a fairly narrow geographic region in the upper latitudes that was controlled, according to them, by both temperature and humidity. And really fascinating. And they had predicted where it would also behave like it had in other areas. And one of those was the northwest of the United States. And a couple new areas popped up that fit right into their predictive pattern. So I'm not sure. And then later, we find laboratory studies I've been reading about where they can take these viruses. Now they haven't done the coronavirus, the 19, this one, but it would be highly unusual for it to behave much differently than the others that are very similar to it. And probably the most, I lean back on this. It was called the Diamond Princess cruise ship. I'm sure you've got smart listeners. They know what I'm talking about. And it was basically a floating petri dish, wasn't it? Because the virus probably raged out of control for several days before anybody exhibited symptoms. They're in close quarters. They've got people coming and going into their rooms for cleaning. They're singing karaoke at night and slapping each other on the back and toasting each other. It is on a cruise ship. You're pretty well packed in there. Yeah. It's likely that most, if not all, of the passengers on that cruise ship were exposed to the virus. Yet, 83% of the people on the ship did not test. And the good news too, every single person on the ship was tested for the virus. So we know exactly who had it and who didn't. 83% of the people on that ship tested negative. And more encouraging, 48.3% of the people that did test positive had no symptoms. And so what that tells me, and bear in mind too, now there was a 1% death rate on that ship, but bear in mind that was, there are a lot of very old people on cruise ships. They're either newlyweds or nearly dead.
Oh, thanks.
Is one way to put it. So, so there, 48.6% of the passengers that tested positive showed no symptoms. And out of those passengers, there was a 1% mortality rate. But again, this was a heavily weighted population of the cruise ship were pretty old. And that's what we've seen again in China and in Italy. A lot of the people there were smokers, which seems to be a really bad thing if you get this, if you're a smoker.
Oh, yeah.
And so I see things, and the other thing we talk about here is the first study we looked at was that. Let me just, I know it's not good at radio to read something. I just got one sentence out of this study. I think it's important to see what they had to say about this. They said even more encouraging was the statement concerning the family of coronaviruses that this belongs to. They've been shown to display strong winter seasonality between December and April. And get this, they are undetectable in summer months in temperate regions. Basically, it just goes away. So we're probably fortunate in the United States that it's arriving now, as winter gives way to spring and summer. it's very, very likely that if this virus acts like the other viruses, then this will probably all just kind of go away. And, we'd have to prepare for the next one. But these, again, these are things that are encouraging to me. And I'm not poo-pooing safety and precautions, because I was on an immunosuppressant, and because of this, I went off of it. So I'm taking precautions, and I'm not taking it lightly. But all I hear is doom and gloom, and there's a very, very good possibility we'll look back on this in a few weeks and look at the economic destruction that's going on because of this, and wonder. One of the possibilities could be we're going to be wondering in a few weeks. It was this. I hate to say it because my son-in-law, do not say what I'm about to say, but it could well be. We're going to look at it's different from Y2K, but it could be just way overblown. I hope.
Well,
that is certainly one scenario that you've never heard. No one's talking about.
No, I actually completely agree with you, because my mother called, and before my father passed away, he made sure that she had some investment on the line. So if she needed anything, as she gets older, and my mom will be 88. Should be should be 88 this July. And she's still very active. She goes and works for her bishop, and she goes to church every Sunday. She's driving around, driving us crazy. But she says, well, why did my investments drop $8,000? I don't understand. Should I pull everything out? Should I look to drop it somewhere else? I says, Mom, leave it alone. And I began to explain to her what was going on. She lives in the Virgin Islands. She has no TV. She occasionally listens to the radio. She doesn't talk to people. So she had no idea what was going on. And as I walked her through it, then she understood. And I said, Mom, you got to understand, you're not going to get a lot of cases. If you do, get one or two. And as I found out, there is one on the island, but the person probably was someone that was in contact with a tourist. And I said,
right.
Here in South Carolina, at that point, we had a total, I think, of 9 cases. I think we're up to 12 or 14 now in all of South Carolina. But all of it is concentrated, except for 2 cases, in Spartanburg, which is up in the mountain area, where it is colder. You don't have the heat and humidity like you have here on the coastline. And it's also centered around a senior citizen's home. So when you start to look at where the clusters are, in urban areas, in areas that have colder climates, that don't have the heat and humidity that we have. I mean, even you in the Philadelphia area, you're going to have more cases than we would here in South Carolina. And as you go further north, New York, the New England area, all up into Maine, they're going to have a longer season of this than we would have. And yet when you turn on the news, Gregory, all you hear are things coming out of California and New York, and what happened to flyover country and the rest of the United States.
Yeah. No, you're right. And we had, but first I'm going to have to criticize you a moment, because you first come on, you call me a name, and now you say I'm from Philadelphia. And if you're from Pittsburgh and people are calling you from Philadelphia, that's them fighting words. So
Curtis is
but
from
you're
the
right about that
Pittsburgh
with
area
temperature.
too, right, Curtis?
That's my hometown, yeah.
Yeah, Curtis, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the Eagles and the Steelers.
And one of the things that didn't fall in place was Australia. There were a fairly large number of cases that popped up in Australia, and I've got quite a few due to my climate change skeptic. I've got Facebook, LinkedIn. I've been making a lot of connections all over the world, but a lot in Australia. And my Australia connections were saying, whoa, no, Greg, you don't understand. This is the end of our summer, and people are going on holiday. And they're returning. They've been all over the world. They've been in France and Italy and touring around. Maybe they were in China, and they're coming home now at the end of their 3 or 4 week holiday to Australia and probably bringing the disease with them. And I said, that makes sense. So this is it'll be interesting. I think you'll probably agree with me when I say we'll know more about this coming up in the next it might be the next 10 days. And it could well be that we might know something sooner, because as I talked to you this morning, we woke up, the humidity here was probably close to 100%, and we got up close to 70 degrees. So, if it'll be interesting to see what shakes out. And we're sheltering in place. My daughter and granddaughter and grandson have been hanging out with us here for the last few days, and we're which is kind of nice, but we're just trying to make do and cooking and whatnot. So, and as we're doing like a lot of other people around the country, but it is this. I mean, if this is, I don't understand how this just blew up like it did when we have many more flu deaths every year than what we've seen from this so far.
Exactly.
Exactly. We do have far more deaths from flu, the cold and flu season, than we do from, this virus. And as I read the stat, it's not 0.04 that we have cases of infection. It is followed 4 zeros, 0.00004 of our total population. And yet we have far more people infected and dying of the common flu, the common influenza, than we have of this WUHAN virus. And I'm going to keep on saying WUHAN virus. I had 2 friends that now they're safe in South Korea that were missionaries in the area where the outbreaks were occurring. In so much as that the communist soldiers actually came to the house, called them outside, took their pictures because they're American, and said, well, you are aware the virus is here and we're not responsible for you. Basically saying, we don't give a damn if you die, and then make your own way out of the country if you can. It took them about a month and a half to get to South Korea, where they are safe and tested fine. But this came out of an area around a factory known for making biological weapons. Why is the outbreak around that factory? Why did the outbreak then concentrate itself in mental institutions and hospitals far worse than in the general population that are in urban areas? Were they testing them on these people? There's a lot of questions that the Chinese are not willing to ask. And once we started to raise that question, what did they do? The Chinese blamed the United States and President Trump for the virus, saying that it was an American-made and it came from America, not from where the true source is. The propaganda that is out there, and depending upon what station you turn on, is going to be, where are you getting your news? From the Criminal News Network or from people like you and me?
Yeah. And again, these several studies that have been coming out are hugely comforting to me. Now, bear in mind these have not been published. They're still in the peer review process. They might be a month or 2 from being published, but the authors and the teams of scientists who put this out and did the research thought that this information about the seasonality and how warm weather and humidity affect us, they thought it was important enough to get that information out to the public. So it's very early in this process, and let's hope that what I'm talking to you about today is correct. And and again, I just go back to saying the most likely scenario is this thing's going to act just like the other coronaviruses and just have this strongly seasonal characteristic, and we'll find it just kind of goes away here in a week or 2 or 3 weeks.
I have a tendency to think exactly like you, and I think by the end of this month and no later than mid-April, we'll see a huge decrease in infections. You'll still see it in the northern urban areas and areas that, like I said, in Spartanburg that are mountainous and colder and don't have the heat and humidity that we have here. Mm-hmm. You'll still see it, especially in heavy urban areas. Now, Spartanburg has a couple of
large urban areas in that area, which is where the concentration is, you're going to see them remain in urban areas, which will speak volumes for those of us that like suburban and rural areas. Why is it that we can survive better than those that rely on big government and big daddy taking care of them? Someone like de Blasio telling you, oh no, your mom wants you to visit, but don't go visiting her. Just tell her, just stay there, Mom. We'll chat by phone, and that's going to be okay. Whereas you got someone like you taking your daughter and granddaughter, it's like, no, Mom, just tell Mom she's got to stay alone. Go die on your own, Mom.
Nah. Yeah, maybe what we should do, I'll just bring the family. Got an extra bedroom, Curtis? Or Anna, maybe you can put us up for a week or two. How about that?
Sure thing.
All right. I can be down there in, 12, 18 hours? Now, we just had friends. I just talked to friends this afternoon that they were in Florida. They left. They didn't want to be trapped there. They got in at 3 o'clock in the morning here and drove the whole way back from Florida. They thought they were afraid everything was going to get shut down. And it might. I mean, in Pennsylvania here, the governor of Pennsylvania yesterday imposed, he said, every single business that doesn't have anything dealing with life sustainability is required to be shut down under penalty of law, and they're going to use the state police and local law enforcement to enforce it, which is a little bit, I just went, whoa.
Draconian.
That's the word. That's the word.
Yeah.
Boy. But it was interesting. Our governor here's been very hostile to the oil and gas. We have a large natural gas large number of workers in the oil and gas field here. He said that business was required, that they were part of this life-sustaining business, which we thought was funny because here's my son-in-law works out, and he works 2 weeks off, but 2 weeks on in the field and 1 week home. So it's been tough on him. Think about that. He works 12 hours a day, and he's got to find a place to get food. He's got to get things done, take care of things, and he's 10 hours from home. So it's difficult. It's difficult for those people that are still working, especially somebody like him that's staying in a motel with, that he has to rely on restaurants and the like for his food.
Now that's the sad part, because here the area, Greg. It's a heavy tourist area. And they've closed down every single indoor and outdoor eating establishment in the entire state of South Carolina. And when you've got the start of the tourist season now and restaurants just gearing up for the tourist season, whoa, the impact on the people here. They've closed down all the schools. Our churches have all basically said for the next 2 weeks we're not having any services inside the church. We'll do everything by video. At least people can get some spiritual guidance, but I think they've gone too far.
I think you're right, and I've just talked to some of our dear friends that owned a business. They just sold it actually 6 months ago, but they were managing it, and they were going to have to lay off. The people that own it now said basically they're going to have to lay off at least half of their staff. Of course, before they got to do that, they got terminated today. So they called up and said, "Well, I guess they're going on to the rest of their life's mission now, starting today." But these are things that are going around that some of these people worked with them for 30 years. They were going to have to send on their way. So it's very difficult, and you wonder. I'm not going to go there. That'd be too conspiracy theorying, but it's. We'll know here in a week or two.
Well,
and I'm not. Whenever I see the Democrats praising Donald Trump and agreeing to do all this stuff, something's wrong there. There's something. If the Democrats are on board with it, I'm not so sure we're doing the right thing with all this, but I don't know.
Well,
but I was supposed to be on with Laura Ingramangle last night to talk about this, and it just didn't. We couldn't get it to work out. But the good news is and I've been writing again about this COVID and actually the heat and temperature. And we were the featured podcast this morning on Heritage Foundation's daily signal broadcast. So my book is back up to its number one in a couple of categories here today, which is amazing. So I thought I'd let you know about that.
Well, for a while I saw that Amazon was not going to ship your book out. So I'm glad to see.
Well, yeah, they're still shipping from their warehouses. And I was mistaken when I read that. What they're doing is restricting shipments into their warehouses. So I can't ship any. I have a Minnesota warehouse that distributes the book out to Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and the like. So at this point, Amazon's not accepting any more books into their warehouses. So, and Amazon, we just shipped them several hundred books last week. So Amazon's got a few hundred books, but they could certainly run out here with for too long. So I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, because I've been ordering stuff off of Amazon, and it's been coming in little bit by little bit, not in its normal, swift shipment. So, I've been sitting here twiddling my thumbs. It's like, okay, where's the shipment? It shows it left you on the 10th. Today is the 20th. Normally I get things between 3 to 4 days. This has now been 10 days. What's the holdup? And every time you look, you see tracking is in progress, in progress, in progress. And it's so infuriating when it's something that you need. And, heaven forbid it's something that's life, necessity. But this is the new reality, thank you to the current system. Now, I'm going to throw you the conspiracy theory, because I threw this over at our previous guest, Glenn McCall. And about 3 months ago, George Soros made a public statement. He was interviewed and made a public comment. He said that with this upcoming election, there is going to be a major economic crisis. Now, he said this approximately a month before the Wuhan virus started to break out. My question is, because George Soros has direct connections into the communist regime in China, as well as direct business dealings inside China, how much did he know, when did he know it, and how many deaths could he alone have said something specifically would have been prevented, and can we hold him criminally culpable? Good questions, people, to think about and ask your elected officials. What did he know? When did he know it?
Oh, yeah.
And is he now officially a traitor to the United States as well as a murderer? I threw it out there.
Oh, well,
I
he's
just
a traitor,
said it.
isn't he? Yeah, well, if not about this, certainly he's, with the market manipulation, he's already been, we know that he's done in the past. The question I would have is if in 2 weeks, or let's just say tomorrow or the next day, we start seeing a decline in infections, and it just kind of goes away. And in 2 weeks, we realize that, oh my God, this was way overblown. The question will have to be is, who benefits from that? Who would have benefited from that, and why was it done? Because we've had other and worse, the H1N1, the swine flu, those things that may be a lot worse than what we have right now, but no one really talked too much about it. No one overreacted. So I don't know. I don't really want to talk too much about that because let's pray for the best and hope this all works out. But we might want to talk a little bit about this commentary that the last one I wrote concerning temperature-related mortality, and it has. The link was the H1 or this coronavirus, but we're being told, and I linked this because Joe Biden came out. His solution for the coronavirus was to enroll us back in the Paris Climate Accord. He said because climate change was leading to significant deaths and health-related problems and blah, 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 which that's just false. You and I have talked before about the relationship between temperature and mortality, and the reality is completely opposite of what we're being told. We're being told that, oh my God, we can't let it get warmer by 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, or we're all going to die. When the fact of the matter is, according to the one study I referenced, both in the United Kingdom and Australia, they looked at temperature-related deaths there and found that 15 times as many people in those countries died due to cold as due to heat. And then the largest study of its kind, Dr. Antonio Gasparini and a large team around the world looked at 74 million temperature-related deaths around the world from 14 different countries. And they concluded that 20 times as many people die with cold-related deaths as they do heat-related deaths. And so it only stands to reason that a little bit of modest amount of global warming would likely save millions of lives every year.
Well, I'm going to
again, that's opposite of what we're being told.
I'm going to reference something that's up on your Facebook page, telling people to go to your Facebook page they can find under your name, Gregory Wrightstone, which you have linked to your book website, inconvenientfacts.xyz, link on the show page, so they can click on that one. Your recent appearance on Fox Nation with Steve Hilton, and the very same thing you're talking about now, you spoke about on that, and there was a young lady that was trying to fight you tooth and nail, and she just was not winning. You know what I'd love to say is, because I got this from your book, and I love to say this when anyone starts to challenge me about global warming, and the first thing out of my mouth was, are you aware that when Christ walked the world, it was a lot warmer than it is today, and yet he had no problem, so what's yours? There's never an answer.
And that's true. People, and we're just, that I just posted another installment for that Fox Nation second part. I just did that last evening, and then I've got another one. My interview I did at CPAC was, I'm putting it together right now. I did that with Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal. That should be up later today. But it's been interesting. It's been if you want to, maybe you want to hear what my big takeaway from CPAC is, Annie, is that my big takeaway were the huge number of African American, black Americans that I saw at CPAC. Man, I mean, I've been going to CPAC for years, and it's not, in the past it's been mostly, they haven't been a large, this year, oh my goodness. I mean, it wasn't, I mean, it was just large percentage of the attendees were black. And it's, if that's indicative of the African American community in the United States, that Donald Trump's having that effect, it could be game over. Of course, this all predated your Wuhan virus, but and of course, somebody at CPAC had that, as you recall.
Yes. But you notice that it was Republicans that had people showing up in their office as well as CPAC. It turns out that the people they were meeting with had some sort of a virus, and there was a comment from someone from the Washington Post, a female reporter, that made the comment, and thankfully she took a lot of heat for, watch the Republicans drop dead because of the Wuhan virus because Trump doesn't care. But yet, I found an unusual number of Republicans coming down with viruses because of public contact. Mm-hmm. Disproportionate to the number of Democratic politicians coming down with that. There's a disproportionate number, and I want to know, George Soros, did you send some of your minions out there? Good question. I'm bringing it back to George Soros. Talk about conspiracy theory. Do you think I can beat Alex Jones out?
Well, maybe. In fact, I got interviewed by it but it wasn't Alex that interviewed me, but his top guy did when I was at CPAC. What's Alex Jones' podcast there, whatever it is, and so which was pretty interesting. In fact, that guy later, just an hour later, got kicked out of CPAC. And for your listeners, that's Conservative Political Action Conference, the largest group of conservatives across the country. And here I had 4 different conferences I was supposed to speak at. Of course, they've all now been coming up over the next month or so. I was supposed to be in Dallas, Texas. I was invited to speak at the EarthX conference, which was the largest Earth Day celebration in the world. They were expecting 200,000 people in Dallas for this, and they were going to have Greg, little old Greg here. I was supposed to speak at the Earth Day conference. And so they've canceled the conference, but we're going to do it via links. I'm going to do it live over the internet, and so we'll still do it. I was supposed to be in Las Vegas the following week for the Heartland Institute conference, which has also been canceled, and then last week in another large conservative conference next weekend. But again, all these they're dropping like flies. They're dropping like a chain-smoking 90-year-old Wuhan virus victim, one right after the other.
Oh man! And they're actually starting to cancel a lot of the primaries, and
yeah.
We'll see what happens, because I think a lot of it has to do with they're trying to do a contested primary to make sure Bernie doesn't have anything in there. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, we're waiting for...
Yeah, it looks like Tulsi Gabbard's been assimilated by the Democrat Party now. So she's on board. Never thought I'd see that. But, well, it's been good talking with you, Annie, and I still love you, even though you thought I didn't. So, yeah. You always remember your first, right, Annie?
Absolutely.
You were my first interview.
Yes, I was always your first. Just don't tell your wife that.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, she knows all about you. But yeah, you were I had an interview with you. It was even before my book was published. So, and then I came down. Was it last August? And talked to your group down in South Carolina.
Yeah, we have fun.
And we'll do it again this year.
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, I love driving around with my little cowboy hat on with the pin that says, "I love CO2," sitting in my back window. Just to piss off the liberals.
Well, you need a bumper sticker. I just got bumper stickers in. Yeah.
All right. Well,
you might get keyed.
You got to send me one, Greg. God bless
you, Greg. All right.
Well,
Thank you very much, Annie.
All right. And people can find you inconvenientfacts.xyz. Gregory Wrightstone. Check him out. Also up on Facebook. Always so much fun to talk with. And we've got a new guest on the show. I want to welcome aboard Phil Kerpen. He has a website called AmericanCommitment.org. He also has one for senior citizens, which is linked to that you can check out. And he's here to discuss a subject that is near and dear to me. And oh, how I love this group. Phil, welcome aboard to Southern Sense. I'm your hostess, Annie, the Radio Chick-a-dee, along with my co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. AARP, what a godsend they are to the senior citizens of America. Don't you agree, Phil?
Only because I think you're being sarcastic. I'll say, yes, I do. They're terrible. Look, this is an organization that is essentially a non-profit for profit. They pay themselves extraordinarily large salaries and benefits, and most of their money comes not from their membership fees, but from licensing their name. And in particular, their biggest arrangement is the lending of their name to United Health, the biggest health insurance company in the country, and their pharmacy benefit manager division, OptumRx. And what they've been doing, and they've been doing this for at least a decade now, going back to Obamacare, is they essentially do the marketing and the lobbying for United Health, and they get a piece of the pie. They basically get to charge a VIG on all of the United Health policies that they help sell. They take 5% off the top. And they make over $600 million a year that way, and they turn around and lobby for insurance company interests and against the interests of seniors pretty consistently. And they're still running TV ads supporting Nancy Pelosi's crazy price control with a 95% tax hike on prescription medicines. All these ads, they're still running those ads while, they're running these ads to chop down and destroy the drug companies. At the same time, the whole world is hoping that one of these drug companies is going to find a cure for this disease and save us all. But that doesn't give them any pause at all. So I find them pretty outrageous. And this project is, we were going to do a big launch and a rollout, and we've got a bunch of new research papers and other facts and information. We're sort of slowing things down a little bit because nobody's paying attention to anything other than the coronavirus crisis right now, but I really do think that we're going to keep having bad outcomes in a lot of these healthcare policy debates as long as, our elected officials are under the misimpression that AARP represents seniors.
Well, I've had a running battle with AARP, and I'm slightly older than you, been there, and when my mother-in-law, I had married my husband, my mother-in-law was having some problems with getting eyeglasses and things like that. I said, I saw the ads for AARP, and I said, all right, fine, let me sign her up for that. And at that point in time, back in the early 90s, I wasn't aware of exactly what and who AARP was, but all my concern is helping my mother-in-law. And, of course, it did do her good for, some prescriptions and for her eyeglasses, and for when she had to go to get her dentures adjusted. And then I started watching the news. And then they were talking about, there were little bits and pieces about Hillary Clinton putting together that thing for health care. And I started to see AARP insinuate itself into some of these debates and conversations. And then I started to listen. Something that, you're young, you're in your 30s, 40s, you're not paying attention, you're not thinking about these things and how it's going to affect you here and now, even though this is an organization going for senior citizens. You think it's harmless, it's for help the senior citizens, it sounds good, it sounds great, oh, how marvelous they are, discounts for this, discounts for that, this great magazine telling you about your health. But when you stop and start to really listen to what they're saying, it became very, very scary to me. And then I started a one-woman crusade and got my mother-in-law out of there. But at that point, there was no other organization really out there to help. So, people fell back to the old routine of going back to AARP. So what do you say to them today, Phil?
Well, I think there are a lot of other alternatives, depending on what it is you're trying to find. If you're just looking for discounts and that kind of thing, usually you could just do a Google search, coupon code, discount, whatever you're looking for. I mean, these days it's so easy to find all kinds of discounts. I'm not even sure you need a membership organization for that. If you're looking for advocacy, someone to represent, your interest in Washington, in state capitals, that kind of thing. I mean, there are a lot of conservative groups out there that do that. Some senior-specific, like 60-plus organization, which is the group associated with Pat Boone. There's also now there's an entity called AMAC that is sort of does both the advocacy and does the some of the insurance products and the discounts and that kind of thing. And there are a lot of other options out there. The main thing is, don't ever buy something just because it has the AARP name on it. And in particular, don't buy a health insurance product just because it has the AARP name on it, because they sold that name to United Health. It's an exclusive endorsement deal. And pretty much all of the commercial products that have their name on it, it's not because they've done an assessment and figured out what's best for you. It's because they're getting paid to put their name on it. That's why they make so much money from royalties.
Oh, absolutely. And, AARP used to send me all the stuff. And when I turned 50, boy, did I get inundated with these things. You sign up, sign up, sign up. It got to the point where I would get, 2 or 3 of them in the mailbox at the same time. So I'd turn them, I'd open them up, get their prepaid return envelope, and put in bright red letters, no. I would start off really polite, no, thank you. Don't send any more. And they just kept on coming and coming and coming until I took a bright red marker on them and started to say, what part of no do you not understand? And I got a little bit more colorful in the later ones. And finally, after about a year, they finally got the hint. I'm using their postage to mail back to say, stop. Nope,
Right.
nope, don't want it. Someone finally got the hint and stopped sending it. But, you know, they bombard you with these mailers. They bombard you with these print advertisements. They bombard you with radio and TV advertisements. They're up on the social networks. They are everywhere, and yet they are one of the most harmful organizations out there.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like we're not going to be able to win any of these major, major national healthcare policy debates until we can sort of take their white hat off and retrain our elected officials to understand that they don't represent seniors, they don't represent voters, they represent, you know, their own interests and the interests of their business partners. And, you know, I've been watching us, you know, from a free market perspective, watching, you know, bad outcomes in all of these health policy debates, and that's why we launched this project, because, you know, I don't see how we can get good outcomes in any of these debates as long as they're sort of the 800-pound gorilla. And so that's why we're trying to sort of expose, you know, the massive conflict of interest they have when most of their money comes from a huge insurance company and they're, you know, trying to act like they're advocating for seniors.
Well, you know, I'm a real pissant, as my husband would tell you.
Yeah.
I walked into
I could tell that.
Well, you know, I have the ability, because I've now reached that point in my life where I don't need to suffer fools gladly. So I make a point of it, of pissing off at least one liberal a day. I've kept that New Year's resolution going 5 years straight. But I walked into my local Walgreens to pick up a prescription, and right by the front door, United Healthcare, with a big AARP sign, had put a sign up there for Medicare Advantage. And at that point in time, Obamacare had the Medicare Advantage plans being phased out within 8 months. At that point, specifically in time. Fortunately, because of the backlash from the public outrage, they decided to keep the Medicare Advantage plans, but they were going to phase them out within 8 months, and yet United Healthcare, with this AARP alleged sponsorship, was pushing the plans. And I looked at it, and there was about 6 senior citizens gathered around this table. The sales agent did not like the fact that I walked up and challenged him on that very issue. I mean, this is what we have to do, don't we? We have to get the word out there, which is what your group is doing.
Yeah, well, yes, thank you. And, you know, the AARP was fine with killing Medicare Advantage plans because their real cash cow is the Medigap plans, the supplemental plans for people who are in traditional Medicare. And those plans, by the way, which are their cash cow, you know, when they agreed to support Obamacare, even though calls from their own members were running 14-1 against it, they got provisions written into Obamacare that allows their Medigap plans, which is their biggest cash cow, to continue to exclude pre-existing conditions. Those are like the only plans. They can still exclude pre-existing conditions. And, you know, that's a pretty nifty trick that they pulled because, you know, it's the same time that they're out there saying, oh, my God, we need to end pre-existing condition exclusions in their political advocacy, their lobbyists got themselves carved out of that.
You know, it is such a scam that I see on AARP. And having read, and people know, I've written on my blog, before Nancy Pelosi said, you've got to pass this so we know what's in it, I read the House plan, I read the Senate plan before the two of them were married. And I wrote extensively about the constitutional violations and other things that were put in there. The conscription of labor that was put in there. The fact that in the Obamacare that a person appointed by government can walk into your home, and if they don't like what's in your refrigerator or in your cabinets, you can be penalized. If you don't like what they're teaching your child, the child can then be removed from your home and given to social services. All this was in Obamacare. And then when you look at how the healthcare advantage with AARP was favored so much in it, and the public has no idea what AARP really is. I'm leaving you
it's pretty
flabbergasted.
remarkable. And by the way, I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen the TV ads they're running now, where they use like out of context clips of President Trump to pretend that he supports Nancy Pelosi's prescription drug bill, and they say the Senate should pass it?
Yeah.
The most dishonest thing I've ever seen. What President Trump actually said about that bill is that he would veto it because it would prevent the development of 100 new medicines. Now, if you're a seniors group, you should be against a bill that will prevent the development of 100 new medicines. But if you're a front for a large insurance company that doesn't want to pay for new medicines, then it makes more sense. But it's incredible. They use a totally out of context clip of President Trump, and they run these ads on Fox to try to make it look like the president supports Nancy Pelosi's bill.
Well,
Phil,
I was going to ask you if you watched. Oh, Curtis, just give me a second, because he mentioned the commercial. Let me follow this thought through. If you had seen the commercials by a lot of these multi-million-dollar sports players, such as Joe Namath, advertising for these Medigap and Medicare Advantage plans, how you get zero premium, zero money down. And if you look at their websites and follow it through, a lot of them come back to United Healthcare and AARP-sponsored programs. Have you seen those?
I have seen some of those. Yes.
Because again, they have somewhere along the way they're linked through United Healthcare and AARP. Because I went onto those sites. My husband and I are both, senior citizens on Medicare, and he's going, "Well, what is it?" And I checked it out, and it is such a scam. Curtis, go ahead, because, this is something else that, Phil, this is what your group is doing, exposing these scams. Curtis, go ahead, please, baby.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you think that AMAC is a viable competitor to AARP and could eventually overtake them in maybe 10, 20 years.
Well, I know their founder recently passed, and so they're in a bit of a sort of transition period. I don't know that there's necessarily going to be one conservative competitor, because it seems every few years somebody starts a new one. They say, we're going to be the conservative AARP or what have you. I think that it's sort of more in the nature of conservatives to have a whole bunch of different groups that cater to kind of smaller populations, smaller niches, and so forth. So I'm not sure you're ever going to see that one powerhouse alternative. And frankly, if somebody's paying $16 a year to AARP because they like the magazine and they use the hotel discount or something, although these days no one's staying in hotels, but that's fine as far as it goes. My concern is not with that. My concern is when they misrepresent themselves in these public policy debates and scare politicians into thinking, oh, this must be what seniors want, when they're really representing what their for-profit partners want. And so I don't know that you need to have one big, sort of conservative alternative that takes them on and sort of displaces them or something like that. I think that winning this fight, from my perspective, is more about kind of making widely known what their business arrangements are, how they make their money, who they really represent, which in my view is United Health more so than seniors. And if we can do that, maybe they can still be successful selling their products and what have you, but they won't be as damaging in terms of distorting the public policy debates we have around healthcare in this country. And that's what I think is really the most harmful thing they do.
Well, Phil, we're talking so much about AARP, which is, as you can tell, it's near and dear to me. I love pissing them off. But American Commitment does so much more. And people can find you at AmericanCommitment.org, because you started off at the Cato Institute. You were a policy analysis for the Club for Growth. You also wrote a book, which I loved the book, Democracy Denied, How Obama is Ignoring You and Bypassing Congress to Radically Transform America and How to Stop Him. Well, we figured that one out. We elected Trump. You have been so active, and I got to tell you.
Yeah, he rolled back a lot of it. We'll see.
Well, I got to tell you that probably at
the
time.
We'll see how.
I was going to say, probably at the time you were going to bed, to Stuyvesant High in Brooklyn. I was probably walking a beat in Brooklyn as a cop. But your organization has a myriad of different aspects to it, where you defend freedom of speech. You're going after regulations. You're also looking at the tax code. You do a lot more things than people like me bitching about AARP. There's a lot more to your group than what we're talking about.
Yeah, what we try to do, it's a little bit different from some of the other groups there. We really don't do original research. We don't really, we don't try to reinvent the wheel. What we try to do is kind of pay attention to the policy debates that are sort of on the margin. They could go in either direction on any of the fiscal, economic, or regulatory issues, and some related things like the free speech issues are important, because if we don't have those, we can't even do any of the rest of our work. So, I mean, we do work on some things that aren't directly kind of economic, but typically we monitor sort of these fights, whether they're regulatory agencies or in Congress or in the White House, and then we try to weigh in where we think, getting regular citizens a little bit educated and a little bit involved, whether it's writing letters to Congress or comments into regulatory agencies or weighing in with the White House, where getting regular people involved by a few hundred or a few thousand or sometimes more than that, we can actually make a difference in terms of the outcomes and tip things in a more free market direction. And that's kind of the mission. And so we do a lot of technology policy issues at the FCC. You'll see a lot of that on our website. We do a lot of healthcare related issues, a lot of energy related issues. So basically all the things that really matter economically, taxes, all the things they really make a big difference in terms of how the economy is growing, how many jobs there are, how much, what's happening with wages. We try to look for the ones where, we can affect the difference. Sometimes sometimes something's just a freight train. You're not going to stop it no matter what you do. It's not really a good use of people's time to get them spun up and active on something. Other times, something's going to be stopped anyway. It was introduced by one nutty Democrat, but it's not going anywhere. So, weighing in against it is not necessary. So, but we try to focus on the things that really could go either way, where getting people involved, educated, active can make a difference. And, we send a lot of email action alerts, and we do a lot of radio interviews like this one, and we just try to get the facts and the information to people so that we can tip some of these fights, some of these outcomes across kind of all these economic policy areas in a more free market direction. And right now it's kind of an insane time because, every crazy left-wing idea I've ever heard of, it seems like somebody's trying to attach to one of these coronavirus bills. And you got Elizabeth Warren saying, forgive all student loans as part of the coronavirus response. You got people trying to do, wind and solar energy credits and stick that in there. And, just sort of like all their left-wing ideas, somebody's trying to find a way to slip in there. Nancy Pelosi tried to put taxpayer-funded abortions in the first coronavirus.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. My God. And
then this is what they do. They try to put all of their insane left-wing stuff in these bills, and then they say, how dare Republicans slow down this urgent need to legislate, when it's just Republicans saying, like, you take out all these ridiculous left-wing things that have nothing to do with this. And so it's this week has been a challenging week from the standpoint of just staying on top of this stuff and trying to stop, the craziest stuff from getting attached to this stuff. But that's kind of the mission of the organization: try to stay on top of the fights where we actually can make a difference and move things in a more pro-growth, pro-prosperity direction. And all the stuff's on the website there at AmericanCommitment.org. And of course, as we were talking about, the AARP stuff, we really launched that project because a lot of these times we get in these fights on healthcare that we think could go either way, and we start getting letters going, getting people involved and so forth, and then AARP weighs in on the other side, and they've got the ability to just shut everything down. The Trump administration had this really great proposal to require the middlemen in the prescription drug business to pass on rebates to seniors at the point of sale in Medicare Part D, because right now the pharmacy benefit managers have this insane, perverse incentive. They actually tell the drug manufacturers, charge us more raise the price because we can charge 25% of the price of the senior at the point of sale as a copay. So you raise the price as high, keep raising it higher and higher and higher. That's great. We want it really high, but give us a big rebate because we're allowed to pocket the rebate. And so if you give us a high price with a high rebate, we make a lot more money than if you give us a low price. Well, they're only allowed to do that because they have an exemption from the federal anti-kickback law. That's insane that they would have an exemption from the federal anti-kickback law. And in a lot of these drugs, like insulins, the rebates are enormous. They can be over 50% of the list price. And so, that's why those are so expensive. And so Trump had a very simple proposal. Let's get rid of the anti-kickback exemption. Let's require any rebate to be passed on to a senior at the point of sale and any Medicare Part D plan. AARP came out against that, guns blazing. They blew it up. Like, how could you call yourself a seniors group and be against that? Well, I figured it out. It's because United Health owns one of the largest pharmacy benefit managers, OptumRx. So they goes after the business model of one of their big for-profit partners where they get their money. And so, we're going to keep losing these big policy debates if we can't kind of expose them. And so that's where that project fits in sort of with the mission of the organization.
Well, we need to unite other conservative groups across the nation. I mean, I still run a Tea Party here in South Carolina, very active, several hundred members in just my little county. We need to get other groups, other Republican groups, other conservative groups involved. And I think if we can unite them the same way we united behind Trump and against the Obama policies and Obama, little mini-me's that have come after him, I think we can probably make a little headway, but that's going to be the hard thing. Going into this upcoming election and coming out of this virus, pandemic, or pandemonium, I should really call it, it's going to take a little time to get us reunited into something like this. And I think if people realize how much AARP is affecting the way our health care is being taken care of during this emergency, I think we may be able to expose them. What's your thoughts?
Well, I was shocked that they were still running that ad, that I saw it even after all. I mean, that just seems insane to me. But frankly, here's the thing I think, the lesson we really need to take out of this virus crisis, and I hope it's over, relatively soon. Every single crazy, stupid government regulation that they ended up suspending should be repealed permanently. I mean, why do we have all of these crazy rules and regulations that prevented tests from being developed and deployed and prevented treatments from getting out and prevented doctors and nurses working across state lines, all this kind of stuff? I think that, and I've seen a few pretty good lists of everything that's been suspended so far, it is amazing how when it really matters, it turns out all these rules and regulations that the left always said we needed, we didn't really need so much. And so I think that's the message we need to carry out of this, because we know the left is going to have their messaging machine cranked up to say, see, this is why we need total government control of our lives all the time. And I kind of see what's happening right now as an example of government failure and private sector to a large extent being the solution, especially when you consider, when the CDC testing basically totally failed. What did President Trump do? He said, okay, we're going to get Walmart and Target and Walgreens and CVS to set up mobile testing labs in their parking lots, and we're going to get Quest and Lab Tech, and they're going to run this all, build a whole new, brand new private sector system for doing all of this, and it's almost up and running now. It's already up and running in a lot of places, and I think we're going to see the superiority of the private sector from sort of an organizational and a competence standpoint over government pretty clearly over the next week or two, and I hope we're going to be able to get a handle on this as a result.
Well, it's funny because my husband and I had to take him up to MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina, yesterday just for an MRI. And, before you got in, just to the offices, not into the hospital itself, into the offices, they had everything closed off, and you had to go through a checkpoint. Have you been out of the country? Have you had a fever? Have you had a cough? Blah, 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 asking all the questions before you were allowed to pass further through. Passing our local hospital yesterday, I saw they already set tents outside of the opening to the hospital where people were being checked before going into the hospital. And I've seen it being placed up. My husband said he went for a follow-up doctor visit after, going up to MUSC locally, and they had a tent outside of the office that, again, you had to pass through, go through the series of testing, fever, blah, 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 before you went into the office. So Americans are adopting. They're adapting very, very well to what the new situation is. We're very, very innovative. And an organization such as yours to recognize that and to work with us, I think in time, I think, Phil, your organization, what you do, not only just on AARP and other issues, I think it's going to make a huge impact. And God bless you for the hard work you do, sir.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing there in South Carolina, and I'm thrilled to hear that you still have a large and active Tea Party group, because I was a huge fan of the Tea Party movement and went to all those rallies on Capitol Hill, and I still do some work with Tea Party Patriots from time to time, but I'm glad to hear that you still have a great local group there, and I hope there's still a lot of them around the country, because a lot of the Tea Party Patriots was the only national group that survived, but I'm glad there's some local groups that are still very strong, and thank you for doing that.
Well, Phil, we'll have to have you on a little bit more and talk about all the other issues that you do cover. God bless you. People can find you, AmericanCommitment.org. Phil, thank you so much, and have a blessed weekend.
All right, you too. Have a good one.
All right. Again, check them out, AmericanCommitment.org. We've got our final victim up on the studio, if I can talk, Curtis. Oh, man.
And you can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been... It has been a crazy, crazy, crazy day. I want to welcome a new gentleman to the show. He is a former business owner, I think he still is an architect. Also, believe it or not, a CIA operative at one point in time. He's author of 2 new books out, the first book of Why and the second book of Why. The first book of Why is actually Why I Am Me. And please, it is not a touchy-feely self-help book. You know, we're not going to sit down and sing Kumbaya. Believe me, that's not what the book is about. The second book is the second book of Why You Need to Know. And to tell you the cover of the book, if you're looking at the video, if I push the video forward, the cover of the second book is rather provocative, since it has a stiletto knife, perforating secrets, lies, spies, assassinations, revenge, sex, and betrayal. Let's welcome to the show Thomas Williamson. Good afternoon, Thomas. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. And how are you? And I have a quick question for you. I have you on speakerphone. Is that okay? Or would you rather just have me
you're sounding
on the regular phone?
No, you're sounding fine. Normally with the speakerphone, we get a reverb or a background, but you sound pretty good, so don't worry about it. You're copacetic.
Well, good, because my wife is sitting here, and we are actually bored after being inside mostly for the last day or so. I don't know what will happen after a week. She might just decide it's better to go outside and see what happens than to suffer another few days with me.
Well, she can't be all that bad, because she has the same name as my little sister, Barbara. So, and matter of fact, my baby sister lives up in the Albany, New York area, so I sent her out a package today with South Carolina saltwater taffy and a couple of bottles of hand sanitizer, because in New York you can't get it. So, yeah. This virus has everyone upside down. You're still at, the Midwest?
I'm still in the Midwest. We live in a little town actually just outside a small town named Tremont. Has a population of probably 2,500, and it's just 15 minutes out of Peoria, Illinois. And by the way, my wife's middle name is Ann, without the E. And my third book, which is about 80% done, one of the main characters is also named Ann. Now, I have to admit, I didn't name them after you, but anyway, I thought that might be interesting.
Oh, that is, it's funny. And she spells Ann correctly, A-N-N.
Oh, yeah, well, good. In my book, there's an E on it. And I also, I know you're in South Carolina, I did a lot of work outside of Myrtle Beach and Conway. It's been now probably 10 years ago at least, worked on a bank in Conway. Mm-hmm. But South Carolina is a beautiful place, very nice, at least the Low Country. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, because Myrtle Beach, Conway, Conway, Myrtle Beach is the Grand Strand. I'm in the Low Country, which is about 3 hours south of it. Low Country starts around Charleston and then goes down to the Georgia border. Yeah, it is. I know the Myrtle Beach, Conway area very well.
Well, the one thing I thought was strange about not strange, I shouldn't use that word, different about Conway is they were very proud of their live oak trees, and they gave them names, not just big oak or large oak. It was like John Foster Dulles oak. Mm-hmm. They gave them full, complete names. Roads circled them, went around them. They went very much out of their way to save those trees and protect them.
Oh, yeah. The angel oak is a very, very famous tree in South Carolina. Matter of fact, the most famous of all the angel oaks, all the oak trees is the angel oak on Johns Island, just south of Charleston. That is the oak tree in South Carolina. And here in the Beaufort area on St. Helena Island, we have what we call the century oak, or the emancipation tree, where the Emancipation Proclamation was read, and any slave that made it to the tree to listen to the Emancipation Proclamation was hereby a free slave. True story here in South Carolina. And they showed up by the hundreds. And on that day, slaves were freed in South Carolina under the century oak. And it still exists. And they actually have built the roadway around it because the tree started to be encroached by traffic, and they rerouted it and to give the tree a little bit more breathing room. We care about those trees.
Well, I could tell you South Carolinians did, just by what they had done in Conway. But and I also worked in the Charleston area, or just north of the Charleston area, on another financial facility in that area. But those days are long past. I'm retired and enjoying every minute of my retirement.
Well, your books are very interesting because I'm in that place halfway between what a lot of the listeners are. Here you are, a child of a World War II active duty. You grew up, with the war going on while your father was serving. Actually, you were born, I believe, 44, and the war ended in 47. My father served in Germany in 47 and 48, so I'm also a child of a World War II veteran, but I came long after. And, we're in that area where, World War II is now ended. You now have the Korean War going into the Vietnam War. And now, the world has exploded. You come from a much more simpler time. You were a military brat, but, things were a lot easier. When TV came around, you had 2 or 3 stations to watch. You listened to the radio, you ran out and you played with your friends in the yard. It's so much different today. So stepping into your book and stepping into what childhood should be compared to what it is today, it is a striking comparison.
Well, that's true, and at the same time, military dependents, especially of the men who served in World War II, and those that stayed in the service afterwards. We didn't suffer through things, but we appreciated the things that we had probably much more than kids today do. And it was a simpler time. We didn't wear helmets when we rode our bikes, and we didn't worry about going downtown to the movie theater or riding the bus, or later on in life when my father was stationed overseas and the family was with him, my younger brother at the age of, I think he was 7, or if that, and I was 16, we were sent to mainland Europe from England by ourselves just to tour for a week. And you couldn't imagine a 16-year-old and a 7-year-old in Europe today by themselves.
No, heaven forbid. I mean, people freak out when they see a parent allowing a child to walk home from school 2 or 3 blocks. Next thing you know, child services is called on the parent, and the parent's being called before a court, before a judge. How dare you allow your child to walk home from school 2 or 3 blocks? We have gone so far overboard that we no longer let children be children, and we shove them in front of these smart devices, or allow them to stay glued to these smart devices, to the detriment of their mental and physical health.
Well, that's true, and one of the best things as I grew older, my parents told me was, let our grandchildren make their own mistakes. Don't try and live their lives for them. Let them experience life and learn from the experience. And I think that is really true. And I think that's something that's lost.
It is, because I believe today's children are too sheltered, and that's why they're afraid of everything. I mean, they have to have safe spaces, things like that, because they can't cope.
Well, isn't that the truth? And my children, you can't call them children anymore. They're in their 40s and 50s. They're somewhat that way, but not as bad as most of the college students of today who I can't believe sometimes what I see on television. It is amazing to see how little they can deal with.
Oh, man.
And it in some ways scares me.
Yeah, and they're triggered over some of the most silliest things. I mean, heaven forbid they watch some of the old shows coming from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. What went on? Then they would say, oh, how racist, oh, how sexist. And, you look at the Marx Brothers, some of the stunts they pulled, they'd be triggered every 15 seconds because of a sexual innuendo that was being used. It's amazing how we have raised a generation of, I'm trying to think of a polite way to say it, but I'm having a difficult time. But wimps.
Scaredy cat.
Wimps. That's what my wife just said, wimps.
Yeah, I have more colorful language that I am biting back the back of my tongue, and my listeners know that I normally don't curse, but when necessary, I let them fly. And wimps I think is too polite a word.
Well, I have, as I have watched cable TV in the last several years, my wife, she has to get upset with me because I throw words at the television set that I never thought I would use. Well, not that I didn't use them, but not like I do now.
Well, I remind my husband, don't throw anything physical at the TV because we paid a lot of money for that TV. I can replace you, not the TV. And she's probably laughing in the background. Yeah, agreeing.
Well, one of the things that I did, when I was writing my books, one of the things that I tried to do was tell people why I turned out the way I did, especially my children, and to tell them about, I think, a time that, not that it was perfect, but it was a better life to live in many ways than it is today, and to tell them about a parent and their grandparents and some of what they did. And I think it's sadly something that's missing in today's kids, and also it, how to say it, shows them, hopefully tells them that their grandparents and the people that came before them had to go through a lot more, and to strive to make things a lot better for them. And hopefully they'll appreciate some of that.
Well, reading your book, and as I was reading the first one, something nagged me in the back of the head. And as I continued to read it, I began to understand. You wrote this book, Why I Am, as a way for you to bring stuff out about yourself. But I found as I was reading it, you weren't talking just to yourself, trying to get yourself to understand who you are today. I seem to hear a voice in you saying, I need to tell my family who I am, why I did certain things, why I couldn't tell you certain things. I felt it was more of a love letter to your family, friends, and explaining to people that knew you why you did and who you are today. Well,
that's very true, because and I really appreciate you capturing that. Yes. She helps me out. I lose my words. She's my thesaurus, my dictionary editor. She's many things. My best friend, my lover. She's my companion. But she's someone special. But I just wanted to know and how it all came about. I discovered a letter that my great-grandfather had written trying to tell his children about what he had gone through, what had happened, and it was something that I thought I would do, and it started out as just, I think I mentioned it in the foreword of the book, that it just started out as a 3-page letter, and it ended up being 2 books. And the third book is really a book of fiction, but the first 2 have a lot to do about me and family and about us.
Yeah, it is. You talk a lot about your grandparents, your great-grandparents, what they went through. And this is something that kids today can't understand. We've got this virus that's coming through and is ravaging our economy. And I got with my previous 3 guests on a rant and rave over this one. But kids today, heaven forbid, you got to stay home for a week or 2, stay in the house, wash your hands, sanitize your hands, clean surface. How dare you ask me to do that? Where you look at what went on before us, where they didn't even have hot and cold running water, much less a bathroom in the house. It was the outhouse out back. It was the pump in the middle of the yard that got you your water. You didn't have electricity or air conditioning in a lot of these situations. Yet, our families survived. Our grandparents survived and raised their kids. Our great-grandparents did it. You did it. Your father did it. And we all managed to come out the other end. I mean, you lived in military housing without air conditioning. Oh, I remember living in military housing back in the 80s, and they were just starting to put air conditioning in. You know, these minor little inconveniences, we still survived and managed to raise kids. Well, I didn't raise kids. I was not blessed with it. But you raised kids. You had a productive life. You had a career. You made yourself in the world and brought your kids into the world. And yet today's kids today don't understand this. And I think that's why someone reading your book can begin to grasp that what they're living today is not the world's worst. There's been worse before that.
Well, that is true, and it is, I lost my train of thought there. Anyway,
Barbara stepped
in. when you mentioned, no running water, I literally, for a while, lived with my great-grandparents for a year and a half, and we would go down and visit with people who were literally a blacksmith who, and I mean I can still remember the smell of how the iron shavings smelled when they would go up in flames. Trying to use the hand pump to get the water up. And with my grandmother on my father's side, it was a well that was just, dug into the ground, and it had a bucket on a rope. It didn't even have a lining. You wouldn't let the bucket swing and hit the side of the well, so you could keep the mud off the bucket. Mm-hmm. It was truly an amazing situation, and you were blessed if you had I'll put it this way, if you had a outhouse that had different sized holes where you wouldn't necessarily, as a small little 3-4-year-old child, worry about falling in, falling through the hole. And that was literally a worry, at least when you're 3 or 4. But simple things, simple toys to play with that were made by your parents and grandparents, things were. And they were fun. Everything was fun. Even getting older and riding behind the DDT truck, spewing out stuff to kill the mosquitoes so they wouldn't pass around diseases. Now, heaven forbid if you saw a DDT spewed out anywhere. Not that it was good to ride behind the truck, but that's what we did for fun. Crazy things that we did.
Well, not only that, we used to have names for diseases like German measles, Spanish flu, Asian flu. We even named one after chicken pox. But, but today, if you try to use somebody's name like China or whatever,
WUHAN virus,
people get upset. This generation. Mm-hmm.
Well, that is true, and it's frustrating. That's the best way to put it. When you listen to, and we have recently, to watch the daily briefings, the press briefings with President Trump, and listen to some of the silliness, maybe silliness, the stupidness that comes out of the mouths of some of the people asking the questions. it's crazy, and it seems to be getting worse where everybody seems to need to be part of the hyphenated word generation. You're Irish-American, German-American, white-American, black-American, on and on and on. And instead of just saying, hey, we're Americans and we're all in this together, is one of the saddest things that has happened in the last generation or two. I find it sadly disappointing. I'll leave it at that.
Well, you wrote extensively about your dad and his service and the sacrifices he gave to our nation. And you had some, fun anecdotes in it, as well as the seriousness. And what struck me is that your father was known, but not known. People that mattered knew who he was, but everyone else didn't know the importance of who your father truly was. And it struck home to you, and I guess to your family. At one point, he got sick. Severely sick. I believe it was with malaria overseas while serving, and they couldn't get the medication to him. And you wrote a scathing letter to the White House, and the response and reaction you never expected.
No, I didn't. Actually, it wasn't malaria. It was the gout, if you can believe that.
Oh, that's right. I believe the gout, yes. Yeah. Of all things.
He was in Vietnam. Actually, he was in the Air Force, but he was on the ground in Vietnam, and he had taken. You get R&R, rest and rehabilitation. They give you a week off, so he got the week off for more, and he got to go to Thailand, and his leg and foot blew up like, 2 or 3 times their normal size, and they sent him back to Vietnam instead of keeping him in Thailand or getting him or letting him stay out of the war zone. And I got very upset and wrote a letter to Lyndon Johnson. And to my surprise, my father had a brigadier general, 1-star general, come in and visit him in the hospital and check it and see how he was doing, because I thought it was, I forget the wording, something damn poor way to treat somebody who had spent his entire career in the military and whose my 2 brothers were, one was flying B-52s at the time over Vietnam, and the other one was his birth date had been pulled number 1 in the draft. He was going to go as soon as he graduated from college, but my father did get attention. And he got his medicine, and it worked. My mother told me I had told her what I had done and made her promise not to tell my father, but years later she said that she had told him. But anyway, that was something that surprised me, but in some ways it didn't, because my father had done some things in the Dominican Republic that he had been asked to do. My father was a very, very good pilot. And he went into the military as a private in the Army right after Pearl Harbor, 2 or 3 months after, and came out as a pilot, an officer, and he was a very, very good pilot. He did a lot of things And so his tombstone says World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and he was in combat in all three of those. Anyway, he to this day is my hero.
Well, reading in the book and what he did, he's my hero too. You know, there's so much that you put in there, and you talk extensively about your marriages. You had me crying in many areas with some of the stuff that was going through. And as you go into your second book, you carry on. But the second book is a little bit more intensive than the first book. The first book is more like an introduction into who you are, your family, and you kind of like gloss over a lot of different things that you then go a little bit deeper into in the second book. And I don't want to give too much away because we want people to buy both of these books. But somewhere along the way, you became an architect. You started to have, you know, a lot of nice projects that were going on. You got involved with the school district and, you know, amazing projects and things that you helped grow the school district with. But you got approached quietly by the CIA, and you ended up being a operative for the CIA for a short period of time.
Well, I did, and I wasn't technically an employee of the CIA. I was a contractor, and just like a lot of other people that would usually never be known or have their names even known until 30 or 40 years after they've done their things. People like the actor Sterling Hayden, actually one of the Supreme Court justices, had from years past, not any of the current ones, had been a contractor for the CIA at one time. So the difference was we were asked to do some things, and we did them, and we did them for probably a lot of different reasons. And it was something that brought me a great deal of personal pride. And that's also something that very few or no one even knew about, even my best friends. So, and certainly not my children. And that's something I wanted them to know a little bit about.
Yeah,
but I did.
Excuse me. It sounded so exciting, and here you are. You're placing your life on the line. As an operative, like you said, you're not an employee. You don't have the indemnity. If anything were to happen to you, as far as anyone knew, you were over there. You were taking pictures. They have no idea what you were up to. Hands are washed clean. You're on your own.
Well, that's the difference between people who are, I won't say everyone, because there are a lot of CIA agency people who do dangerous things and are at risk, but many people in the CIA are given some diplomatic cover, so if they're caught, eventually they will be released and get to come home. If you're just a contractor, they don't know you if something happens to you. You are on your own. And that was the thing that was, I'm not a brave person, but that was the thing that scared me the most. But what always concerned me the most, and I found out about myself, was I could do a lot more if there was somebody either beside me or behind me or that I could count on or be with me. When I was absolutely, or I thought I was absolutely on my own, for me, it was scary. Let me put it that way. Even when it wasn't that dangerous at that moment, it still those were fears I had to always overcome. I'll put it that way.
Well, as your handlers used to say, breathe. Remember to breathe. I thought
yes.
that very, very, very apropos. And people can get themselves worked up into a tizzy if they start to overthink, which is a problem a lot of us do. And you talk also about those, not twilight, but those midnight hours, that time between 2:30 and 4 in the morning. A lot of us end up waking up in the middle of the night, whether it's because our bladder is saying time to wake up, or things just nag you in your brain. And as you think you're asleep the most, these things start popping up into your subconscious and then conscious. Next thing you know, you're awake and just dwelling on these issues.
Well, that's true, and that's the one thing I can say that I'm proudest of over the years. I tried to write about it in the book when I was, very young. You see these cartoons about kids worrying about monsters under the bed or, being afraid of the dark, those kinds of things. And that was me when I was little. And over time, I learned to manage those things and I built little rooms that I would lock these things away. And now I can just, and I do. I wake up for a variety of reasons, always about the same time, but I can open the door to pleasant thoughts now and lock up and close the doors, to the bad things. My biggest problem is my brain is so cluttered with little rooms I've locked things away in that I can't remember a lot of things at this old age.
We say we suffer from CRA, can't remember, and I'm sure you know what the last word is. Go ahead, Curtis.
Yeah.
Phil, did you go to the CIA?
No, not Phil, Thomas.
About working for them?
Curtis, Phil was our last guest.
Oh,
Thomas,
man.
yeah.
Thomas.
See, suffering from CRS there, Curtis.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Thomas.
Anyway, they approached me. What happened was, and I didn't know it at the time, early in the Vietnam War, let me back up a little bit. Everybody still had to sign up for the draft. So at 18, I went down and registered as required by law. And as they started to reinstitute the draft, they said, everyone in college, you can quiz out of it. My word, quiz, not theirs. But they invited us, at least at the school I was going to come in and test. And you went in, you gave them a thumbprint, you were given paper and a ballpoint pen or pencil, I can't remember which, and a list of 4 or 5 subjects to write on that you could pick. And I picked something that had to do with the Soviet Union and Red China and which one would be our biggest enemy in the future. And I wrote about that. Didn't think anything more about it. As long as I stayed in college, they weren't going to draft me. And some years later, because of a whole different set of circumstances, they went back to that. And that was one of the reasons I was picked. But the main reason was I was an architect with conservative leanings. Most architects, art students were more radical, out demonstrating and things during the Vietnam War, so on and so forth. And the CIA had a project where they had invested a lot of time and effort with another architect who had contracted terminal cancer, and they had to find someone who was an architect to quickly replace that person. And because my father had security clearances from the military, and both my brothers had security clearances, I was there. I was the opportune architect at the time to be selected because of all those things. And that's what happened. They had me on a list early on from college because I didn't know, but that was something that they had set up to review for future situations. So all of that combined, they came and asked me, and I had the ego, and I thought, why not? You know, I'll prove things to myself and to my father, and that's what I did.
Well,
so, that's how I got involved.
Well, they're both amazing books, and, what I love is that you spoke lovingly of each of your brides, no matter what, and each one was someone completely different, and you now have a new love in your life, Barbara, and God bless that the two of you found each other. And Barbara, your story alone is an amazing, amazing story, what you have gone through and how you have been such a beautiful woman and given so much with your family, and now what you're giving now to Thomas and his family. You're an amazing, amazing person. My recommendation is the next time you buy Thomas a gift, get a hat that says, "Yes, dear." So anytime he starts to give you lip, hand him the hat and say, "What do you say now, dear?" "Yes, dear."
I agree. And I have a wonderful man here. Did she hear that?
I'm sure she heard that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Anyway,
I heard it. I am lucky. She said we're both lucky, and we are. I'm glad we get along as well as we do because we spend a lot of time together. Now we're going to spend every minute together for who knows how long. So,
and I in the third book, and wait till they see me there.
Yes, I've written about her in the third book. As you know, she has a chapter in the second book, along with my dog Grover, who is no longer with us. But he was a good dog. But my wife's a better wife. I'll put it that way.
Well, I got to tell you, I do have 5 cats. I did have 6. I lost one last year. My first pet actually happened to have been a dog. I ended up becoming allergic to dogs, but all of my animals have been rescued. And I remember my mom had lost one of her cats, and there was the last cat that was in the house, and she was kind of like, my mom was literally moping around the house. There was no cat. So like you, I went to the shelter, and like you, I found this one that everyone said don't adopt. And I brought this one animal home, just fell in love with it. And for many years, that cat was such joy. And the cat was so smart and so loyal. And like you found that with Glover. And I tell everyone, go to a shelter and to adopt. Don't buy one of these from a puppy mill. Go to the shelter. Unfortunately, a lot of these puppies from the puppy mill end up in shelters, which makes them all the more precious. So, we've got those services out there. Let's utilize them. Let's go to the shelters and help the nonprofits. But this is what conservative is about. And they think that we hate these things. No, we actually support and love them. Absolutely phenomenal books, Thomas. I'm looking forward to the third one. You got to make sure that you do send it to me. I have so much fun reading them. Pictures of them are up on the video that's showing up on Facebook and will be put up on YouTube a little bit later. There is a link on the show page to your website, which is your name with a hyphen in the middle, thomas-williamson.com. They can read about you, get your books from over there, and God bless you for writing them. And I'm looking forward to the third book.
Well, I am looking forward to getting the third book completed, and maybe that's a positive with being locked away here in the next few weeks in quarantine or whatever you want to call it. And thank you so much for doing that for the books and for me. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed writing the books, and I have really enjoyed writing this third one. So, I hope people do take a look. I think they will be happy with what they read, or I shouldn't say happy. Enjoy the books. I'll put it that way.
Well, thank you, Thomas. And it's also a pleasure speaking with you and your lovely bride, Barbara. And God bless you. And please stay safe.
Well, we will. And thank you. And you, yes, Barbara said you're wonderful, and you are. And we appreciate every minute we've spent here, and we've enjoyed it immensely.
Well, Barbara, put him to work. Tell him to sit down, write. Go work, Barbara.
Read.
We will. Thomas and Barbara Williamson, thank you so much. And God bless you, and have a wonderful weekend.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, Curtis, what wonderful people. And we have such wonderful guests that come on the show. I don't know how we luck out. Very rarely do I find one that's a pissant, but, we have so much fun with them. For those that tuned in at the start of the show expecting our dedication to a fallen hero, our schedule got a little turned upside down. One thing led to another. So at the end of the show, Curtis and I are going to do the dedication to our fallen hero. And we may end up with a few minutes afterwards. But before I do the dedication, for those that are listening in Beaufort, South Carolina here, I got my shipment of alcohol in and my shipment of aloe vera. I'm going to be putting together some hand sanitizers. If you are from my tea party here in Beaufort, South Carolina, or if you're here in Beaufort, South Carolina, and you do not have any hand sanitizer, contact me through the Beaufort Tea Party website, and I will let you know how you can get some. I am doing this for the community. It's not me to stockpile. It's not me to put up on the internet and sell for exorbitant prices. It's here for me to help the community and to help keep you safe. So again, check me out on Beaufort Tea Party website if you need it. Otherwise, don't look for it to stockpile. This is going to be for people that actually really do need it. And that said, Curtis, we had a lot of fun, so I guess it's time for us to do our dedication.
I would say so.
All right.
We'll be back next week.
Absolutely, next week. And we do have guests already lined up for next week. I'll be damned if I can remember. But I know we're pretty much filled up next week, and I'm looking for the following week to get Mark Sutherland back on, along with Dan Perkins, to talk about the Wuhan virus, to talk about the Jezebel spirit. I think a lot of this all ties in, so I will be reaching for the following week, not next week, but the following week, to have Mark and Dan. And I know, Mark, you're listening in. I see you out there, so I will be talking to you. It's a good thing about seeing who's up on my Facebook pages while we're doing this. All right, that said, today's dedication is going to go out to Public Safety Officer Jackson Ryan Winkeler of the Florence Regional Airport Department of Public Safety here in South Carolina. His end of watch was Sunday, January 5th of this year. And this is from WITX. And it reads, a suspect is now charged in the killing of a police officer at a South Carolina airport. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division announced that James Edward Bell, 37,
is accused of shooting to death Officer Jackson Ryan Winkeler of the Florence Airport Public Safety Department. Agents say on Sunday morning, Winkeler did a traffic stop at Bell's vehicle on a road on airport property. Bell is then accused of shooting and killing Winkeler during the stop, then leaving the scene. Officers who responded to the scene of the crime described what they found. According to the warrant, they found an empty 9mm handgun with more than 30 spent shell casings. They also noted there was a bullet hole near Winkeler's driver's side mirror. Winkeler's service weapon was also missing. Officers arrested Bell near Highway 52 in Florence County a short time later. They say during a search they found Winkeler's gun. In addition to the murder charge, Bell is also charged with discharging of a firearm into a vehicle and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Winkeler's funeral was the following Thursday. Florence Airport Director Connie Anderson wrote, "Officer Jackson Winkeler brought so much joy to our work family. His contagious laughter and infectious personality had the ability to brighten a room when walking in the door, and he will forever impact those of us here at the Florence Regional Airport who had the pleasure of working with him. Please continue to pray for us as our family unit is broken right now. But we are so thankful for the grace of our Heavenly Father and know that in time we will heal. As we do so, Jackson's memory and dedication to the Florence Regional Airport will forever live on. We ask you to please join us in prayer for Jackson's family. Thank you, Winkeler family, for allowing us to love and share your son's life. He is and will always be Florence Regional Airport's hero." From Emily Wakeham of WIS-TV. Florence County is a community that knows heartbreak of losing law enforcement officers all too well. They mourned an officer fatally shot at Florence Regional Airport early Sunday, January 5th in the morning. It is the third law enforcement officer to be fatally shot in Florence County in less than 2 years. Investigators say 26-year-old Jackson Ryan Winkeler was shot while making a traffic stop at the airport. When Winkeler wasn't working as an airport officer, he spent his time as a firefighter at the Latta Fire Department. A procession of emergency vehicles made its way from the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston to a funeral home in the Latta area. Friends who worked alongside Winkeler at the Latta Fire Department said the community is extremely close-knit and devastated by this loss. To lose one of our own is probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to deal with, Lieutenant Nick Bethia, a firefighter at the Latta Fire Department, said. That's the closest it's hit to home. Nick Bethia fought fires alongside Winkeler for the last year, but they had been friends since middle school. Bethia said losing him is like losing a brother. Jackson had a heart of gold, and that was the most important part to us, Nick said. He always cared about everyone else. He always put himself last to make sure everyone had what they needed. Jackson would give you the world. He said Winkeler's death had been devastating for the entire community. There is no one in this community who didn't know Jackson Winkeler, he said. It didn't matter who you were. He treated everyone the same. Winkeler's tragic death is a fresh wave of heartbreak for the Florence County community who lost 2 officers, Deputy Farrar Turner and Sergeant Terrence Caraway, during a shooting in October 2018. Florence County Council Chair Waymond Mumford said the community is trying to recover and heal from losing these officers. This is one morning right back in the same thing we had in 2018. So it's just so sad, Mumford said. Officials said this was the first officer-involved shooting in the nation in 2020. I don't know what goes through people's mind to cause them to do such hideous crimes, Mumford said. Winkeler's fellow firefighters said he was one of the most selfless people they knew. If I had to make one phone call, and it wasn't to family, it would be to Jackson. Because, he would do all he could to help you, John Bethea, a Ladder Fire Department firefighter, said. Nick Bethea said Winkeler always wanted to go into law enforcement to help and serve his community, and his loss will be felt by law enforcement and the entire community for a long time to come. It has brought us closer together than we thought we were. It has shown us the true meaning of brotherhood, the thin blue line and the thin red line. They're together. Public safety in general, Nick said. The Florence airport director made a statement saying Winkeler brought so much joy to the airport's work family, and that he is, and always will be, Florence Regional Airport's hero. Today's show is dedicated to Public Safety Officer Jackson Ryan Winkeler. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women out there that serve as first responders, be they law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women out there that serve in our military, from the birth of this nation until today and into its marvelous future. And as we end this show, we thank everyone for joining us. We thank those that have been with us over on Facebook, on Blog Talk Radio, and SHR Media. And we end the show quietly with the dedication to these brave men and women that serve our nation. And we ask that you join us again next Friday in another exciting adventure here on Southern Sense. So as Curtis and I sign out, Annie, the Radio Chick-a-dee, and Curtis C.S. Bennett, we thank you. And may God bless each and every one of you. And to remember to be safe out there during this virus and our economic upheaval. May it end very soon. We end the show with the closing. When the roll is called out yonder, I say good night and God bless.
"90 seconds. 90 20 seconds. 60 seconds. Seconds.